Chapter 413. Gu Nianji drank her milk with her head down and didn't seem to hear what Bai Yueran said. Even if she did, she could only pretend not to hear. This was Hua Xiaoheng's business and Gu Nianji shouldn't be listening. She looked down at the unfinished egg tarts on the bluegrass plate in front of her and picked one up with her fork to eat carefully. Hua Xiaoheng put down the coffee cup in his hand and said calmly, "There are special procedures for the special ops to recruit people. Although Director Bai was just transferred here, you should know about it." Bai Yueran smiled, "Of course I know, but I still have to let you know because General Ji is taking special care of me." She paused and her face turned serious. "Su Piaohong is different from the others. General Ji wants you to think about it. It would be better if you could get along with her. The Special Ops has always encouraged internal marriages, the same as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Secret Service." Hua Xiaoheng didn't expect General Ji to still not give up on the idea, but he wouldn't say anything about General Ji in front of Bai Yueran. Gu Nianji didn't expect to hear about this with her head down, and her heart was suddenly in turmoil. Her palms were sweaty, and her heart was pounding so hard that her chest was vibrating. How could this be? She suddenly remembered Miao Yunxiao talking about matchmaking and future cousin-in-law at school. Could Miao Yunxiao's cousin be Su Piaohong? When she returned to school, she had to find a chance to find out who Miao Yunxiao's cousin was. Who was so powerful that they were favored by the special ops and insisted on matchmaking Hua Xiao. "Director Bai, it's the weekend and we can't talk about business." Hua Xiaoheng glanced at Gu Nianji and saw that she had her head down so he couldn't see her expression. He could only see the top of her dark head and the clear hairpin. He raised the coffee cup beside him and said to Bai Yueran, "The coffee here is good. It's not instant made and is hand ground. Would you like to try it, Director Bai?" "I don't drink coffee, only tea." Bai Yueran saw that Hua Xiaoheng didn't want to talk about it, so she didn't pursue the topic. However, she still smiled and said, "Hua Xiao, I know it's the weekend and we're talking about your marriage. It's not official business, so it's not against the rules, right?" Hua Xiaoheng smiled. "Thank you for your concern, Director Bai. I appreciate your kindness." Bai Yueran nodded. "I just wanted to remind you that Su Piaohong's family background has been investigated by the legal department. If she really wants to join us, she will have to go through the proper procedures. Furthermore, you are the head of the special forces. You can decide whether she can join us or not, but you have to consider the people behind her. Hua Xiao, you're a smart person, so you don't need me to come up with ideas. I'm just informing you." Bai Yueran finished speaking and left, leaving behind a confident and resolute silhouette. Her left ankle was in excruciating pain and she couldn't even stand before she see how long she fell to the ground and instinctively sipped his coffee calmly, took out his phone to check his emails to see if there was anything in the center of gravity unstable for a while. If he really hurt his foot with one pull, it would be better for him towards him in person and talk things out. There's someone there. The waiter wasn't really injured and was only pretending to let Hua Xiaoheng escape. The onlookers were all anxious to General Ji card on the tray. Her daughter had never had no intention of explaining himself. He dashed over and used one choice to speak. How could she lift weight across her arms and lean back and prevent it from falling? At 7 o'clock at the same time, tried to speak in a calm voice. Intersection and Hua Xiao, what did Bai Yueran just in the crook of his arm? "Aren't you going to explain?" he said anxiously. Although she wanted to make way, she didn't care. As they walked out of the warehouse, they saw a red Ferrari shoot out of the parking lot. It was obvious that she was unhappy. "You haven't finished talking." Su Piaohong couldn't together on the dining to run away like that. He said calmly, "She stepped forward. This is related to my work." She yelled, "You didn't turn to look at speeding." His eyes raised hair about traffic was being squeezed as there couldn't help but shiver. If I was blood gushed out of her heart, the people in the supermarket Mrs. Su looked at her daughter for them to see. She was disappointed and was very pleased as she cared about. That's right. The girls left General Ji liked her upright and well-spoken character. It looked like you have to remember that Major General Hua is refused to give up and must not shock. But Bai Yueran said you softened this time, but they felt their faces in front of him. Don't you think you owe me an explanation? What's the point of living there? I didn't then Su Piaohong blushed at her mother's young age, but she was unhappy and she recalled how Hua Xiao she vented all her anger on Gu Nianji. Why do you care so much about what other people say? He wants to follow them and say you don't want to marry or faking it. Say it. Hey girl, he already said he doesn't know you. Can we change the decision made by the military? Her delicate nose was slightly red. What childish words are you saying? Right. But you didn't have any intention of saying anything. Since the military told you before that when you meet your foot, there are many things you can't know how you're faking. There's also no need. The crowd couldn't stand it when Xiaoheng started criticizing. On the surface, they said it was for us to spend time together, but it was actually for us to get married. He stood up as she spoke, and there was no justice in this world. Mrs. Su was a soldier with no justice in this world. She bit her lower lip. She burst into tears, and Su was only a small company. Commander. Mom, I want to go see how Gu Yanji entered the restaurant. I can't afford to manage troops and several military restaurants. Gu Yanji was the one who lost her balance and was recognized by the old general. She found that she was already he was sent to the military academy to further his studies. It was like he wanted to kill out the degree. What was wrong with his generation? It was very rare to see a soldier with a bachelor's and master's degree. This was also one of the reasons she was more tangled in Sue was able to rise. She pulled only when it came to matters related to. But how can I marry him if he doesn't care? She scolded, thrown out the window. Why are you think about it? She spoke and acted like crying couldn't help what she smiled earlier. It was as if she could already for being like this. Don't you understand? Controlling his noble head and frowning smiling at her with that unbelievably gentle. Didn't you already know who Su Piaohong was? In the Ferrari, didn't you know how I felt about her? Tightly to the passenger seat by Hu Xiaohong's seatbelt. She held on to the handle of the roof and watched with gentle words of comfort. Her heart skipped a beat. The tears she had been holding back for a long time drive a sports car like a fighter jet. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and pushed Ferrari's hand away. Otherwise, she continued to look out the window and said sullenly, "It would have fallen apart." But she's going to be transferred to your side fearfully to look at the pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. Who knows if you guys will develop feelings over time? She said in a trembling voice. Shook his head speechlessly. Drive slower. He turned her around by the shoulder. Although her waist and tear-stained face, her attention was completely diverted when she saw Xiaohong's roller coaster stance. You're thinking too much. She didn't feel as much pain anymore. Isn't a place where just anyone can get in. His hands saying that she definitely won't get in. He spoke to Zhao Yangzi, looked up and stared into Hu Xiaohong's deep eyes. Little Zay, get someone to get the nearest police car to clear the way or not is a matter of work. Zhao Yangzi had already seen the scene through the supermarket one hand and took a tissue from the box in the car to wipe the tears off her face. Zhao Yangzi broke out in a cold sweat in front of the camera and said pitifully, "Fortunately, I didn't want to argue with you, but you can't just not say anything." Is it that important? She still sprained her ankle. Was puzzled. Zhao Yangzi I didn't tell you about the past. Which way do you want to argue with me? I'll see which police station is the most convenient. After a while, she said sullenly, looked at the location displayed by the car's GPS and frowned. We weren't like this before. The nearest hospital do I have to our downtown area? The most she could do was hide her unhappiness. Not only was the environment not good, but there were also no good doctors there. Understood and smiled. Xiaohong made a decision. You have the right to argue now? He quickly turned the steering wheel. There will be a lot of things I won't tell you in the future. On the road. Gu Yanji silently with the road was so intense about it with her fingers for a while. Gu Yanji her emotions calmed down and her rationality gradually returned. She closed her eyes helplessly. I definitely won't ask about your work, drive slower, but I have the right to know about things related to our relationship. Did he have to drive so fast? For a while and nodded. Xiaohong made a sharp turn. As long as it doesn't conflict with my work, I'll tell you. He drove towards the Special Operations Forces headquarters. He said no matter what it is, on the other side of the Bluetooth headset from my own mouth. Get Chinlai to get ready. You can't take other people's words if he can get a few of the most famous orthopedic doctors on standby. You'll really tell me, Chief? Of course I won't ask about your work. Loudly and immediately I only want to know about things related to our relationship. There was a ready-made hospital in the base with the best facilities. She looked at Hu Xiaohong's chest and placed her hand over his heart. Each one was an elite. She could feel his vigorous heartbeat. Chinlai received a call from Zhao Yangzi saying that Gu Yanji had sprained her ankle outside, but she had pushed Hu Xiaohong away in a fit of pique. He immediately volunteered. If she leaned in now, wouldn't it be embarrassing? I'll get two orthopedic doctors to come with me. Gu Yanji's hesitant expression was like an open painting in Hu Xiaohong's eyes. And the others will be here soon. All her thoughts were written hung up and looked at the social media he was monitoring. Raised his hand. It had only been 5 minutes since he last saw it. He took the initiative to pull her into his arms. As expected, the person who took the video couldn't wait to upload the video to social media. Tightly inside. Coincidentally, he had taken the picture diagonally behind Hu Xiaohong. Have you thought about how you're going to tell General G? Could be seen from the front. This was the first chapter. Hu Xiaohong was tall and handsome. It was better to ask for guaranteed monthly votes and recommendation votes, so he couldn't see her face. Today was Monday. The video was called Time to Take Her Medicine. Yes, crazy girl scams and I'm very busy. Major General turns a blind eye. I uploaded the second chapter yesterday so that it could be updated in time. I also inherited her mother's and missing voice. If you download it again, you'll see that it could be heard clearly in the video. There are also other chapters that have uploaded the video to his social media account. The second chapter. It was immediately reposted by an internet celebrity who liked watching reality shows. He even added a comment. Chapter 4, best reality show ever. Xiaohong was silent for a long time. This person was an internet celebrity in D Capital. Don't worry, almost everyone who followed him in D Capital saw the video the moment Yanji's background was investigated. The content of the video was so explosive and interesting that everyone happily gathered around to watch. Aware of each other's intentions, Xiaohong and her mother were quickly exposed. However, he didn't want Gu Yanji to know how far apart they used to be. Okay, I'll listen to you. People who had seen her before. Gu Yanji nodded and snuggled into Hu Xiaohong's embrace under the person's social media account. I don't have anyone I can rely on watching a joke. Before this sensational video was, of course, a wave of sadness and lowered his relevant departments. It was as if he wanted to be a routine check, but the content was actually related to the special forces. Gun Yanji felt the place where Hua Xiaoheng looked very much so hot it was almost burning. But Hua Xiaoheng wasn't an ordinary person. Like she was on a roller coaster. Although General Ji was trying to get Hua Xiaoheng to step up from behind the scenes to lay the foundation for him to take over a bigger position in the future, his public exposure was still limited to the military. You understand me, don't you? To the public, he was still in a state of secrecy. His true position could not be revealed in public. His voice low and deep. Perhaps most people would just treat it as a joke. But in the eyes of those who were burrowed into Hua Xiaoheng's embrace like a little animal looking for the most powerful support. Had accidentally leaked information, hugged her for a while before pulling her out of the car. The American CIA elevator in the underground parking lot. Had spent 6 years trying to determine who the head of the Huanghe message saying he wouldn't be returning to the base today. But this video incident finally gave them in charge of the defense this weekend. Soon, spies from all over the world gathered near the warehouse supermarket. Where do you want to go today? I have the whole day to spend warehouse supermarket as the center and looked around the area within a 5-mile radius to conduct a covert search. No, I'll go back tomorrow. This time they would dig 3 feet into the ground to find little face that had just dried her tears. Zhao Liangza closely followed the developments on the internet and also cooperated with the Secret Service to obtain some clues that were stirring abroad. Hua Xiaoheng didn't ask in the eye of the storm, as Hua Xiaoheng had just driven the Ferrari to the special forces. The haze from earlier was swept away. Chen Lai was waiting at the entrance with 2 of his best orthopedic surgeons and a male nurse carrying a stretcher. Hot pot at home. Chen Lai rushed over when he saw the car approaching. No, I'll have to buy some. Got out from the other side and went around the empty fridge side to open the door. The house didn't look like a home at all, except for the bed. Secured to the passenger seat by Hua Xiaoheng's seat with a seatbelt. As Gun Yanji was also tightly wrapped in bandages. She pressed the elevator button again and took out her phone to check the location of a nearby supermarket. Since Hua Xiaoheng had agreed to spend the whole day with her, he would let her arrange it. Tears welled up in her large eyes, but they wouldn't fall. Stared straight ahead. She wasn't in pain. She was out of the elevator and into the parking lot. Was only concerned about her injury. The 2 of them quickly got into the car. He bent over to the nearest supermarket to buy meat and vegetables for hot pot. Do you want to put on a as well as various carrying her up? Chen Lai could tell from Gun Yanji's expression that her injury wasn't serious. Stores all over the world. But Hua Xiaoheng's posture had applied for a membership card for Gun Yanji to make it easier for her to buy things when she was overseas. Do you think you're still convenient for him to come here to buy vegetables? Chen Lai turned to look at Hua Xiaoheng and scolded him. The shopping cart down the aisle of the warehouse cleared the road for you? Her beautiful face and tall figure made her very eye the victims of the car accident. However, she was accompanied by a calm and incomparably handsome man. Lifted Gun Yanji. The number of men who dared to hit on her in his arms and asked more than half. Are you ready? Gun Yanji didn't care about that at all. Or a CT scan? She was more concerned about whether the food in the supermarket was fresh. Whether the beef was tender enough, whether the lamb was thin enough, and there was also fish sauce, shrimp sauce, come and carry her fish balls, meatballs, the video of the warehouse supermarket spread like wildfire on social media for an hour things into the shopping cart one by one and smiled. It was deleted from the entire internet. He learned how to cook. Even the person who took the video couldn't find a backup on his phone or cloud account. Isn't that because you're here, Hua Xiao? But everyone can be in charge of eating and washing the dishes, especially Hijichu. Okay, then I'll go pick a few things. He didn't usually go on social media. Hua Xiaoheng said as he walked to the other side and asked him to see if there were any acquaintances. Gun Yanji followed him curiously. He didn't have anything to do on the weekend anyway, so he logged on to take a look. He picked a few freshwater fish and bought some salmon behind the tall coriander had celery, which had a stronger taste. Although she didn't look up and he had never seen her in clothes before, for hot pot. Hijichu only needed to glance at the back of her head to recognize who she was. I've never heard of using salmon for hot pot. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation picked out to pay the bill before saying, "We'll have hot pot tonight. Oh, make something fresh for lunch. Don't you like fish?" Chapter 417. Gun Yanji was even watching the video without saying a word. If I had known, I wouldn't have eaten so much in the loud woman, but I would have saved my stomach images at the end. The entire video, which lasted less than 5 minutes, he pushed it and looked around as he walked. Who was still in the middle of the shopping kitchen of that apartment, crashed into the cart and slid to the ground. Ladles and all kinds of spices covered her head with one hand. The scene of Hua Xiaoheng had all the brands they were used to, so they bought everything. Gun Yanji at the same time was never knew that there were so many types of things in the kitchen. Blankly at the final ending scene. She looked at the shopping cart full of things and said in surprise, "You bought so many things for the iPad in front of him. We can open a restaurant, right?" He felt like he could feel Gun Yanji's fear. Open a restaurant. 6 years ago, she had suffered a smile. 6 years later, was she going to suffer a fright again? Gun Yanji's heart was filled with sweetness. What the hell was Hua Xiaoheng doing? She grabbed Hua Xiaoheng's arm. How could he injure her in broad daylight? Hua Xiao, you're the best. Hijichu paced back and forth in the room in frustration. He had to make sure Gun Yanji was fine before he could do anything else. Hold on to me. After struggling internally for a while, he finally picked up his phone and dialed Hua Xiaoheng immediately. The phone rang for a line in front of them and found a relatively less crowded place to get in line. Fluctuating like the ringing. Both of them were very nervous but refused to give up. It was hard not to notice them when they stood in the middle of a group of middle-aged women and finally picked up. As expected,
He noticed that
Su
Xu
Xiaohong
left
left
a
a
message
message
after
after
calling
calling
to
to
buy
buy
something,
something,
so he
saw
picked up
Xiaohong
just in
in
case
case
it
it
was
was
something
something
important.
important. What a
He asked
coincidence.
politely,
Mrs.
"Is this
Su looked
Professor
at her
He?"
daughter meaningfully,
little Zhe.
then looked at
Nianji is in
Xiaohong.
surgery.
She said
Please
to Su
call back
Xiaohong,
tomorrow.
"This is the man you like?"
Yijichu closed his eyes with
She
the
knew
phone
that
in
her
his
daughter
hand.
had always had
She was
high
indeed
standards,
injured, and it was
in the
probably
past,
quite
she and her
serious.
father had
She
always
still
tried
had
to
to undergo
introduce her to
surgery.
men in their circle,
Which hospital
but she
is
had
she
always
having surgery
rejected
at?
them.
She had said that
Yijichu's normally
they were
aloof
spoiled
voice
brats
was a
who
bit
only
hoarse.
had a good family
He had to see
background and
Gun Yanji
refused
with
to
his
get
own
along with
eyes
them.
to be at ease.
She had said that
Zhao
she wanted to
Yangzi
find an
froze.
ordinary man
Professor
with a good
He
character
is
and
fine.
ambition.
She just
She hadn't
sprained her
expected
ankle,
her daughter to
but
end up
Huashao
with
is
a
still
man with an
worried.
even better
He got
family
the best
background.
orthopedic doctor
So it
to
wasn't that
examine
she
her.
didn't like those
It's
men
too
in the
serious
past
to
because
call
their
it
families
surgery.
were too good.
He's actually
but
setting
because
her
their
bones.
families weren't good enough. Really?
Mrs. Su smiled and
Yijichu
shook her
finally
head.
calmed down a
She
little,
was very happy.
but he was still worried
She didn't
about
have to worry
Gunyanji's
about
condition.
a child like that.
He
She
hesitated
was most
for a
afraid
while,
that
then
Su
insisted,
Xiaohong would like
"Tell me
someone
the
with a
name
good
of the
character
hospital
and
and
ambition,
I'll go see her
but who
right
had
away."
a poor family background.
Zhao Yangzi raised
That
his
would be a
thick
lifetime
eyebrows
of
and said
pain.
in shock,
Huashao was
"Professor
a
He,
major
don't
general
bother.
at a young
Nianji
age.
is fine.
His
I'll have
grandfather
her
and
call you
father
when
were
she's
both
out of the
generals,
operating room.
and his grandmother was from the famous
I
Xie
want to see
family.
her now."
His mother's family
Yijichu's
background
emotions
was
were in
average,
turmoil,
but his grandfather was the
face the same
director
thing
of the
happening
Institute
again.
of High Energy
He couldn't
Physics.
help but threaten
They
Zhao
could barely
Yangzi.
be considered a scholarly
"Mr. Zhao,
family.
if you don't tell me
Only
which
a man
hospital
like that was
Nianji is
worthy
in,
of their
I'll
clever
call the
daughter,
police,
who was
will
different
say
from the
that
other
you're
children
illegally
of government
detaining him.
officials.
Do you want to go over and
Zhao
say
Yangzi
hello?"
smiled. Mrs.
He
Su
switched the
pouted
phone
at
to his
Huashao.
other hand and pressed
It looks
pause.
like he lives nearby.
The people
He
who
opened
came
the
to the
video call
warehouse
and said to
supermarket to buy
Huashao,
groceries
who was
were
waiting at the
basically
entrance of the
residents of the
operating room
neighborhood.
at the base
The
hospital.
Su family had
Huashao,
just bought a small
Professor He
apartment
saw
for
the
Su
video and
Qiaohong
called to
as a
see
dowry.
Gunyanji.
What they were
Tell him
interested
he's
in
in
was that the
surgery.
location was
Call
good,
him when he's
it was
done.
especially safe,
Huashao
and privacy
sat on
was
the
well
bench
protected.
outside the operating
Su
room.
Qiaohong blushed
He
even
pressed
more.
his palms together
She
and
thought
leaned
that no
forward.
matter where she went,
His
she would
elbows
always
rested
bump
on
into
his knees.
Huashao.
His
Now that
expression
they
was
lived
calm,
so
and the
close
speed
together,
of his speech
this
didn't
must be the
change.
legendary
However,
fate.
he stood firmly
"Okay,
at
let's
the
go
door
over
and
and
didn't
say
go
hello."
anywhere.
Su
Zhao
Qiaohong
Yangzi
tried her
smiled
best to be
bitterly.
magnanimous as
I
she
told
pushed
him,
the
but he
shopping cart
refused.
and walked
He
towards
even
Huashao
threatened me
with her
that if
mother.
I didn't let him see
Major
Nianji
General
right
Hua.
away, he'd call
Su
the police
Qiaohong
and
came
sue
up
us for
behind
illegal
Huashao
detention.
and called out boldly.
Huashao didn't even
Immediately,
look up.
people looked over.
He said
A
calmly
major
into his
general
Bluetooth
actually
headset,
came out to buy
then
groceries.
let him sue.
Someone
He hung
even
up and didn't
secretly
want to
took out
listen
his
to
phone
little
to
Zay's
record a
rambling
major
anymore.
general buying
He had only
groceries
waited there for
documentary.
half an hour.
Huashao
Zhao
heard
Yangzi
Su
had already
Qiaohong's
used
voice
all
and
sorts
frowned
of
unhappily.
excuses to call him
He
10
didn't turn
times.
around and had an
All
idea.
he wanted was for
He tilted
Huashao
his
to
head
leave the
and said to
operating room.
Gunyanji,
I
"Xiaohong
need to deal with
understood
her.
Zhao Yangzi's
Can you pay the bill
intentions,
yourself?"
but he had his own ideas.
Gunyanji
He wouldn't
also
be led
heard
by the
someone
nose
call
by his
Huashao from
subordinates.
behind.
However,
Actually,
he didn't
it was
blame
fine
Zhao
to just call him
Yangzi.
Huashao.
After all, he was
Calling
just
him
doing his
Major
job
General
as a
in
personal
public was
secretary.
really stupid.
No one was in the
Also,
wrong,
the
so
voice
they
was
maintained their
extremely
own way of
familiar.
doing things.
She immediately
Zhao
thought
Yangzi
of the
had no
policewoman
choice
in
but to
turn
return to
Xiaohong, who
Yijichu's
had
phone.
rashly forced them to
He
stop.
found that he hadn't hung
She was
up and
also
was
the
still
candidate
waiting.
for Huashaoheng's
"What is it?
wife.
Did you
She
ask for
lifted her eyes
instructions
to
from
look
your
at
boss?"
Huashaoheng.
She couldn't
Yijichu
tell
saw
from
that
his
the
face
call
that he
was
was
connected
treating
again
Su
and said
Qiaohong
sarcastically,
sarcastically,
"Although
"Tell me the
Huashao
address of your
looked at her
hospital."
calmly,
I'll
there
be
was
there
a
right
hint in
away.
his eyes that she was
He had
familiar
already
with.
changed into
She
his
immediately
coat.
understood
It was
that
a black
Huashao must
cashmere
have
mid-length
something planned.
coat. It was
She
a slim
immediately
fit,
said,
and the
"Then
tailoring
I'll
was
go and
top
pay the
notch.
bill first."
It didn't have a
She
logo,
continued
so
to
it
push
couldn't
the
be bought
shopping cart
anywhere.
forward.
He already had the
Huashao
car
stopped
keys in
and
his
put his
hand.
hands in his
He
pockets.
was only waiting for
He
Zhao
turned to
Yangzi
look
to
at
tell
Su
him the
Qiaohong and
hospital's
her
name
mother
and
and
nodded
address.
slightly.
Zhao Yangzi
Major
began to
General Hua,
deliberately
is that
stall
really
for
you?
time.
I saw
He
it from
said
afar and
slowly,
thought I got the
"Professor
wrong
He,
person."
are you still
Su
waiting?"
Qiaohong was
Cut the
getting more
crap.
and more excited.
"Hurry up. You're here to buy
Yijichu was
groceries?"
getting impatient.
"Where are your
He
personal
tried his best to
secretaries?
control himself.
Where are your orderlies?"
The veins on his
The
forehead
onlookers
were
about
getting
to
more
pop.
and more excited.
"Professor He,
"Do you treat
they
every
finally
one of your
saw a
students
real
so
major
well?"
general of the
Zhao
empire,
Yangzi asked
and
slowly.
one with personal
He had
secretaries person
been
ordered
trying
these
to
at
stall
that.
for time,
They had to
so
take
he didn't
pictures.
have anything else to
They
say.
had to take pictures.
However, as soon
Then
as
they
he
could
said
upload it to
Zhao
Weibo and
Yang's
it would
heart
definitely
skipped
gain a
beat
lot of
and
fans.
he began to mutter.
The person happily
Indeed,
took
when
out
he
his
thought
phone
about it
and began
carefully,
to secretly
Professor,
record.
he really did treat
Out of the
Gun
corner
Yanji
of
very
his
well.
eye,
In the long run,
there was the secretly recording him with his phone. In the
He
short
didn't stop
run,
him,
there was
but
the
held the phone
dormitory
in his
arrangements
trouser
and
pocket
special
with one hand
one-on-one
and quickly
classes
pressed
for
a
her.
few shortcut
In addition,
keys to
there was the
connect to
anxiety
Zhao
he
Yang's
felt today.
communication system.
He finally realized that
message
his teacher's
blindly.
concern for
Someone is
Gunyanji seemed
secretly
to have
recording.
surpassed the concern
San
a
Juan
professor
Warehouse
should have for his
Supermarket.
students. Pay attention to all major social
Zhao
networks.
Yangzi rubbed his chin
Zhao
as he
Yangzi
waited for
received the
Hijichu's
message
answer.
and immediately connected
Hijichu
to the
cleverly
warehouse
avoided the
supermarket
question.
cameras.
He turned the
He
card
searched
keys
frame
in his
by
hand.
frame and finally
His
saw
emotions
Huo
had
Xiaoheng.
already
He
recovered.
also saw the situation
He said
around him
coldly,
and locked
"If
onto
you
the
keep
person
nagging,
behind
I'll
Huo
sue you
Xiaoheng
as
who
well."
was holding a phone and
Professor
focusing
He,
on him.
please don't keep
What a
talking
weirdo
about
to
suing or
secretly
not.
record someone
There's
so
no
brazenly.
point in talking about it
Zhao
too much.
Yangzi waved his
Zhao
fist at the
Yangzi
camera
was
and
also a
recorded the
straight-A
person's
student.
face.
Although he
Su
majored in
Qiaohong was still
computers, he had also
excitedly
expressing
studying
her
little in
joy.
other areas. Major
The
General
Special
Hua,
Operations Forces
I've already
walked
sent
on
an
the edge of
application to the
domestic law
bureau
and was in the gray
I'm going
area
to be
of
transferred
international
to the
law.
Special Forces
Therefore,
soon.
they had all studied
Her
the
voice
basics
was
of
too
law
loud
and knew
and
what
Huo
was
Xiaoheng
illegal
felt
and
that
what
he
wasn't.
couldn't let her continue.
As long as you know it's
He
boring.
raised his eyebrows and
He
said
Jichu
calmly,
walked towards the
"You've
door.
got the wrong person,
So don't waste time."
He then
I wanna
turned
see
and walked
Gun Yanji
away,
right away.
leaving the shocked
Zhao
Su
Yang's
Piaohong
also
and Mrs.
became
Su on the
serious.
ground. He
Got
said
the wrong
calmly,
person?
Professor
No
He,
way.
I understand
Isn't
your
he-
anxiety,
isn't he
but I
Major
can only
General
say
Hua?
4 words to
Su
you.
Piaohong
No
was
comment.
confused.
You
I'd
really won't
recognize
say
him
anything.
even if he turned to
He
ashes.
was furious.
Mrs. Su
In
saw
the
that the
operating
people
room,
around them were
Gun
already
Yanji
pointing
sat
at
on a
them and was
particularly
extremely
well-made
embarrassed.
operating table. Her
She
forehead
quickly
was
grabbed
beaded
Su
with sweat.
Piaohong's hand.
Even the tip
Stop
of her
talking.
exquisite nose
Let's
had
go back
tiny
first.
beads of sweat.
No.
2 of the
Su
best
Piaohong
orthopedic
shook off
surgeons in
Mrs.
the
Su's
entire
hand
empire.
stubbornly.
One of them
I didn't
pressed
get
down
the
on her
wrong
knee
person.
and the other held her
I know
ankle.
it's him.
They felt
Su
for the
Piaohong
position of
stood
the
on her
ankle bone
tiptoes
and
to look
tested
at it first.
Huoxiaohing and saw
Then
him
they
bowing
suddenly
slightly
exerted
beside a
force and
tall,
pulled
beautiful
outwards.
girl.
Aiming
He
at
seemed
the
to be
position of
listening
the
to what
ankle
she was
joint,
saying.
they pressed inwards.
His expression was
Gun Yanji
unbelievably
screamed and
gentle.
fell backwards
It was a
onto the
completely
operating
different
table.
person from the
The pain
cold
was
and
so
indifferent
excruciating
Huoxiaohing
that
who
her
had just
internal
turned his
organs
back
were
on her.
twisted.
Su
Qianlai
Piaohong
felt
felt
the
the
lump
lump
in her
and
throat.
wiped the sweat off
She
his
clenched her
forehead with
fists
lingering
and raised
fear.
her head.
Luckily, the
Isn't that Gun
soundproofing in the
Yanji?
operating room was
He's
top
with her.
notch. How dare he
Otherwise,
say he's not
if Huoxiaohing
Huoxiaohing
heard it from outside,
she then
he
rushed
might just
over.
rush in with a gun
At that
and shoot
moment,
them all.
Huoxiaohing was
Okay,
instructing
the ankle
Gun
is
Yanji.
slightly dislocated.
When that lunatic
It's all
comes
back in
over
place
later,
now.
no matter what she
One
does,
of the surgeons
don't say a
lifted
word.
Gun Yanji's
You
left
have to
foot
lower
for
your
Qianlai
head and
to
don't
see.
let anyone take a
Qianlai
picture of
went
your
over
face.
to feel the
Do
position
you
of Gun
understand?
Yanji's ankle
Gun
joint
Yanji
and nodded.
didn't understand.
You're the
But when
best.
Su Piaohong
You're so
ran
accurate.
over angrily,
If
she
it was someone
understood
else,
everything
Yanji's
and
foot
quickly
would
hid
most
behind
likely have
Huoxiaohing.
problems.
Su
An
Piaohong
ankle
had blown up
dislocation
this
could be
time and would
serious or
definitely
minor.
cut off her path
If it
to the
wasn't
special
properly
forces.
connected,
This
there would
was
be
the
a slight limp in the future.
3,500-word second
It wouldn't be
update.
noticeable if
She
one
still
walked
asked
slowly,
for guaranteed
but if one
monthly
walked
votes
too
and
fast or
recommendation
ran,
votes.
the limp would be
Today
very
was
obvious.
Monday, so she
Gun
needed
Yanji was only
recommendation
18.
votes.
Qianlai didn't want her
intersection
beautiful
underscore
long legs
intersection.
to become a cripple.
Oh.
The 2 orthopedic surgeons laughed and said,
Chapter 4:15.
"We've done this kind of surgery a year,
Huoxiaohing.
if not 1,000.
I respected you
Don't
as a
worry,
major
we've
general,
never had any
but
side
you lied
effects.
to my face.
Thank
How
you,
dare
both
you
of
say
you.
you're not
When her
Huoxiaohing?
foot is completely
Su
healed in a few
Piaohong
days,
rushed in front
I'll
of
bring her over
Huoxiaohing
to
in the
treat
blink
you
of
to
an eye.
dinner." Her pretty
Qianlai
face
acted
flushed
like
with
a big
anger.
brother and cupped
She
his
clenched
hands
her
in
fists
thanks to
and
his
roared at
colleagues.
Huoxiaohing like a
Dr.
little
Chen, you're
leopard.
too kind.
You've helped us a lot
furrowed
imperceptibly.
imperceptibly.
He put his hands
Today
in his
we'll help
trouser
you out
pockets
once in a
and
while.
said calmly, "We have to
If I
thank
say
you for
you've got the
giving us
wrong
this
person,
opportunity."
then you've got the wrong
The 2
person.
doctors laughed
As he
heartily
spoke,
and took
he
off their
gave Su
masks to
Piaohong
open the
mother
door
a
to the
warning look.
operating room. Her daughter was
Huoxiaohing
young
stood
and
up from the
immature,
bench
but her
outside the
mother,
door
who
and
was
looked at
almost
them
50 years
inquiringly.
old, couldn't be the same.
Huoxiao is still here.
Mrs. Su's heart
The
skipped
2
a beat when
orthopedic
she saw
surgeons greeted
Huoxiaohing's
him with a
gaze.
smile.
She felt
It's just
very
a minor
uncomfortable.
surgery.
What
Don't
kind of
worry,
gaze was
Huoxiao.
that?
Yes,
It was a
thank
look
you.
of contempt,
I'll treat you to tea
and
another
warning.
day.
Mrs. Su
Huoxiao
had
lived
lived
like
like
a
a princess
princess
with her
already
husband
rushed
for
into
so
the
many
operating
years.
There
There
was
was
always
always
people
people
who
who respected
respected
her,
Gun Yanji when
but
he
she
turned
had
to
never
see
fawned
Huoxiao
over
come in.
anyone. Even
He
people
wanted
with
to
high
hide it from him
positions like
quickly
General
waved
Ji
him
and
out.
Prime Minister Do
We're
had to
not
be
done
polite
here
to
yet.
them. Her back
Huoxiaohing's
still
rank
needs to
was
be
higher
X-rayed.
than her husband's.
Go out
and his
first.
position was also
Huoxiaohing was
higher.
tall and had
She
long
should
legs.
have no choice but to
He
bow
looked
her
over
head,
Qianlai's
but she
head
was
to
going
see
to marry
Gun
her
Yanji
daughter
lying
off.
on the operating
If she
table.
softened now,
Her cheeks
how
were
would
as
her
white
daughter
as snow
survive
without
in the
any
whole
color
family?
at all. Wouldn't
Her
she be
lips were
suppressed
even
by
paler.
Huoxiaohing for
It
the
was
rest of her
obvious that
life?
she had experienced
She and her
unimaginable
husband, Deputy
pain.
Chief of Staff
Huoxiaohing's
Su,
expression
were both
also
from
changed.
City.
You
Marrying
didn't
off a
use
daughter in
anesthetics
City
when you
was about
operated
having
on
a
her?
daughter from 100
Qianlai
families.
groaned.
That was
It
the
was
way
just
to show
bone
respect.
setting and bone setting.
Moreover,
It wasn't good to
Piaohong
use
and
anesthetics.
Huoxiaohing's marriage was
What do you
favored
mean
by
it
the
wasn't good to
military,
use
and General
anesthetics?
Ji was the matchmaker.
She didn't feel anything.
If Huoxiaohing
She
dared
wouldn't
to
know
play
if it was
tricks on her
connected
and her
wrongly.
daughter,
Do
they
you
wouldn't
want her to
care.
have
But
sequelae
General
and
Ji
limp
would
when
be
she
greatly
walks in the
offended.
future?
If
Qianlai
Huoxiaohing
braced
dared to do
himself
something
to
like
argue
this,
with
he'd
Huoxiaohing.
better think about his
The
own
truth
future
was that he
first.
didn't want to use
No matter how
anesthetics
bad a
on
man's
Gun Yanji
character
because
was
he
or
wanted
how
to
lustful,
observe her pain
he wouldn't
tolerance.
dare to be careless
The 2
about his
orthopedic
own
surgeons
future.
also said that it
Mrs.
was
Su
best
thought
not
it
to
through
use
in a flash
anesthetics
and
to
was sure that
connect the bones
Huoxiaohing wouldn't
perfectly.
dare to do anything to them.
Huoxiaohing's expression was
She raised her
stern.
head and looked at
He wanted to
Huoxiaohing in
rebuke
almost the
Qianlai
same
bit
posture
more,
as Su
but
Piaohong.
Gu Nianji already
She
spoke
laughed
up
coldly
weakly
and said,
Major
"Xiao,
General Hua,
I'm fine.
why are you looking
Don't
at
blame
me?
Brother Chen.
Don't you dare to
It's
admit
all
your
thanks
own
to
name?
him that my foot is
Shouldn't you
fine.
tell me what's
Her
wrong with
voice
my
was
daughter?"
thin and weak, like
Wu
a kitten
Xiaoheng's
that had
eyes
just
narrowed.
recovered from a
He
serious
finally
illness.
understood how such
Wu
a weird
Xiaoheng
daughter
glared
like
at
Su
Su
Piaohong
Piaohong
was
walked
raised.
to Gu Nianji's
Like
bedside.
mother like daughter,
He
bent
Deputy
down
Chief
to examine her
Su was
closely
really
and picked up
amazing.
a tissue
Wu
from the
Xiaoheng's
table to
heart was
wipe her
slightly
sweat.
scornful, but
His
his
eyes were
expression was
focused
still
and
indifferent.
concerned as he asked
He
quietly,
said calmly,
"Does it still
"No
hurt?"
comment. It
Su
doesn't hurt
Piaohong
anymore."
couldn't bear to see
Gu
Wu
Nianji
Xiaoheng's
said
indifferent
honestly.
expression.
It just hurt
The
a lot
gentleness
when the
she
bone
saw
was
on
set.
his face earlier
It's
seemed to
fine
have been
now.
a hallucination.
I'll make you pork rib
There was
soup
no
when we
longer
get back.
any trace of it on
Wu
his solemn
Xiaoheng
and
said as he
handsome
stared
face.
at Chen Lai
Su
unkindly.
Piaohong was hurt and
Chen
angry
Lai's
at the
face
same
was
time.
full of fear. He wanted
She
nothing
balled her
more than
hand
to
into
curl
a
his
fist
fat
and
body
pressed it
into
against
a
her
ball.
lips,
Gu
trying
Nianji
her
pressed
best
her
to
lips
hide her
and said
sobbing
pitifully,
voice.
"But I'm
Major
hungry
General
right
Hua,
now.
what did I do
Wu
wrong?
Xiaoheng finally
Tell
let
me
Chen
and I'll
Lai go.
definitely change.
I'll go
But
prepare
the way you
something
are
for
right
you."
now really
"Yeah,
disappoints
I want
me.
Wu Xiao's
I didn't
homemade
expect
fried
you to
rice."
be such a
Gu
person.
Nianji answered
The corners
obediently
of
and
Gu Nianji's
discreetly
mouth
helped Chen
twitched
Lai
as
out.
she listened from
Wu
behind
Xiaoheng
Wu
left in a
Xiaoheng.
hurry. She couldn't
Chen Lai
help but
practically
complain
pounced on
internally,
Gu Nianji's
"What kind of
bedside
person
and
is this and
laughed.
that?
Is he close to
Nianji,
you?
I've saved you so
Is it
many
really
times.
okay to speak like
It's
this?
rare that you repay
Can't
me.
you hear the sound of the sea in your head?
I didn't
Wu
dote on
Xiaoheng
you for
didn't
nothing."
mind. The
Gu
Special
Nianji
Operations
smiled and was
Forces
about
had
to
experienced
speak when
all
Huo Xiaohong
kinds of
walked in
emergency
again with a
training.
dark expression.
They had experienced
Her and
people
Qin
more
Lai
eccentric
smiles
than
froze
Su
on their
Qiaohong,
faces,
and
They
situations
looked at
more
each other and
embarrassing
thought in
than this.
unison, "Oh
Therefore,
no, we've
Huo
been
Xiaohong
exposed.
didn't feel any
We've
pressure
been
at
caught
all.
red-handed."
He was just a
Huo
little
Xiaohong
confused.
didn't even look at
What
Qin
did
Lai.
General GC and
He
Su
handed Gu
Qiaohong?
Nianji's phone to
Why
her
did he
and
have
said
to
with an
introduce her
unfriendly
to him?
expression,
Su
"Here,
Qiaohong
hurry
waited
up
for a
and
long
video call
time,
your
but
Professor
Huo
He."
Xiaohong still
This
didn't
is the
say
first
anything.
3,500
His expression
words.
was calm,
I'm
and there
begging
was
for
no
monthly
warmth in
votes
his
and
eyes.
recommendation votes.
He wasn't even looking
Thank
at
you,
her.
ring of 8
His eyes were on the
precepts
shelves
for the
nearby,
gift of Heshabi
and he seemed to be
yesterday.
focused on the snacks on the
7
shelves.
o'clock the next
The humiliation of being
night.
completely
Intersection
ignored made her even
intersection.
angrier and angrier than being scolded or hit in her face. She had never been ignored so
Chapter
thoroughly
418.
even though she had grown up so much.
Professor He?
And she had been
Why do you want
ignored
a
by the
video
person
call?
she had a crush
Gu
on.
Nianji hadn't
The
expected
embarrassment
the
was
words
mixed with
your
the humiliation
Professor
of her
He
pride.
to come out of Huo
The more
Xiaohong's
Su
mouth at
Qiaohong
all.
thought about it,
She
the
was stunned
angrier
for a
she
moment,
got, and the
she
corners
clenched
of her
her
lips
fists and
curled up
trembled
slightly
slightly.
on her snow-white face.
Major General Hua,
It complimented
don't you
her
have anything
clear,
to
inky
say?
eyes, and
Huo
gave off
Xiaohong
an
felt that it
unknown
was
sense
about
of
time.
sexiness. He
Huo
glanced
Xiaohong
at her
looked away.
coldly and said,
He
"You
knew
need
you
to
were
take
injured
medicine
and wanted
if you're
to
sick.
see you.
Otherwise,
agree,
a minor
so he
illness
asked for a
will
video
become a
call.
serious illness and
Huo
there'll be
Xiaohong
no
briefly
cure."
explained what had
He
happened
then turned
and
to
said,
leave.
"You guys
Su
take your
Qiaohong
time."
completely
He
lost
turned
her
to
mind
leave.
from Huo
Gu
Xiaohong's
Nianji
sarcasm.
looked at her phone and
She
then at
rushed
the
forward
direction
and
Huo
reached out
Xiaohong
to pull
disappeared
Gu
in.
Nianji out from
She
behind
had a
him.
lot of questions
She
but
yelled,
couldn't ask
"She's
Huo Xiaohong.
Nianji.
She
How
could
dare
only
you say
dial
you're not
Hijichu's
Huo Xiaohong?"
number.
Gu
Hijichu was
Nianji
wearing
didn't
a coat
expect
and
the girl to
standing
be
in front
so
of the
tough.
French windows.
She hurriedly retreated,
He looked at his
but
watch
remembered
from time
Huo
to time
Xiaohong's
and held
words
his
alone
phone
in
in
his
his
other
other
hand
hand
as
as
he
he
looked
looked
at
the
the
scenery
picture of her
outside.
face. Just as he
She
was
only
about to
stared
rush
at
out
the
the
small
door,
area
his
in
phone
front of her
finally
feet.
rang.
She was
It
so
was Gu
anxious when
Nianji's
she retreated
exclusive
that she
ringtone.
lost her balance.
He quickly raised the phone
Coincidentally,
to his
a
ear and
shopping
asked
cart was
tentatively,
pushed over
"Hello?"
from behind.
Gu
The
Nianji
shopping
heard
cart was
Hijichu's
piled
voice
so
and
high
gave
that it
Qin Lai a
completely
look.
blocked the
She waved
person's
him
mouth.
out of sight.
Qin Lai
The person
glared
didn't
at her,
see
but
anyone
still backed
retreat.
out of the room.
He still
Gu
pushed the
Nianji
shopping
finally
cart
spoke to
forward.
Hijichu.
He just wanted to pay
Professor
and go
He,
home
how
as
did
soon
you
as
know I was
possible.
injured?
The two collided
Hijichu
with a
heard that
loud
Gu
bang.
Nianji's voice
Gu
was still
Nianji's
soft
back
and
slammed
sweet.
into the shopping
It wasn't
cart.
as weak and
She
frightened as he
grimaced
had
in pain
imagined.
and had no
He
choice but to
relaxed a
quickly
little.
move to the
He
side.
put one hand in
However,
his coat
her
pocket
left
and
foot
looked
couldn't
at his
stop
own
in time
reflection
and
in the
twisted
window.
on the cart's wheel.
He said coldly, "The video has already gone viral. Your Huo Xiao is famous now." Gu Nianji froze. Video? What video? You don't know? Hijichu frowned. I can't see it anymore. Someone secretly took it in the supermarket and put it on social media. Hijichu paused. Although he was reluctant, he still said lazily, "But there's no front view of you in the video. Your Huo Xiao only has a back view. The other mother and daughter are in the limelight more." Gu Nianji suddenly recalled Su Qiaohong's overbearing attitude at the time. She pouted and said unhappily, "That Su Qiaohong really doesn't know what she's doing. I don't know who gave her so much confidence." Hijichu's heart ached when he heard this, but he could only go along with Gu Nianji's words. He didn't want her to get angry again. She has someone to rely on, right? Otherwise, how could he be so presumptuous? Hijichu said calmly, then opened FaceTime on his phone to video call Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji didn't mind. She casually accepted and video called Hijichu. Hijichu immediately saw Gu Nianji's snow-white, bloodless face and large, slightly tired eyes. She was only 18 or 19 years old, but she looked a little haggard. This was the body's natural reaction after being injured. Her injury was not as light as Zhao Liangza had made it out to be. Hijichu immediately came to this conclusion. Hijichu's heart ached when he saw Gu Nianji pretending to be fine despite being injured. He had been living under someone else's roof for a long time, so he had developed this habit of being careful. She had never suffered like this when she was with him in the past. She might have been young at the time, but she had never acted according to others' feelings. It wasn't that she didn't know how to look, but that there was no need to. Hijichu looked at her quietly and used his eyes to caress Gu Nianji's face on the video. His voice was a little hoarse. "Where are you injured?" "I didn't see it clearly on the video, but little Zay said you sprained your ankle." "Did you only sprain your ankle?" Hijichu's question reminded Gu Nianji. She touched the area on her back and frowned. "My ankle was dislocated, but I've already put it back in place. But my back still hurts a little, so I'll have to go for an x-ray later." Hijichu nodded. "Go now, don't delay. I'll go after the video call with Professor He." Gu Nianji nodded quickly. "Thank you for your concern, Professor He. Being too polite would make one seem unfamiliar." Hijichu looked at Gu Nianji silently for a while and considered his words for a long time before saying, "It's best to have your ligaments checked. If there's a problem with the ligaments, treat it immediately. Otherwise it won't recover." Gu Nianji didn't really listen to him, but she still expressed her gratitude for his kindness. "Got it. Thank you, Professor He." Hijichu almost vomited blood when he heard her say, "Thank you," left and right. The corners of his mouth twitched as he finally said, "Call me after the x-ray or send me a text to let me know you're fine." Yes, of course. Professor, he is such a good teacher." Gunyanji giggled and agreed immediately. But it didn't sound sincere. Hijichu knew she was brushing him off, but he didn't expose her. He only said slowly, "If you don't call or text me in 30 minutes, I'll keep calling until you pick up." He then ended the FaceTime. Gunyanji looked at the suddenly darkened phone screen and shook her head with a smile. She turned off her phone and called Chin Lai over the intercom. "Brother Chin, I'm fine now. Can I go for the x-ray now?" Her back needed to be x-rayed, and her ankles also needed to be taken to make sure that they were completely connected. Although the two orthopedic experts had guaranteed there would be no sequelae, Hua Xiaoheng insisted on getting an x-ray just in case. Chin Lai also agreed, so Gunyanji listened to them and went for the x-ray. Chin Lai saw that she was fine and pushed a wheelchair in. He helped her sit in the wheelchair and pushed her to the radiology department for the x-ray. Because Hua Xiaoheng had specifically asked for Gunyanji, the doctors at the Special Operations Forces Hospital gave Gunyanji the best treatment and had the best radiologist take the x-ray. After 20 minutes, the clear x-ray was developed and a copy was sent to Chin Lai and Hua Xiaoheng. After returning from the radiology department, Gunyanji sat on the oval sofa in Chin Lai's office to drink milk and eat snacks. The fried rice that Hua Xiaoheng had promised hadn't arrived yet, and Gunyanji was so hungry that she couldn't take it anymore. She ordered milk and cake for afternoon tea. They had originally agreed to go home together for hot pot today. Gunyanji missed the shopping cart of hot pot ingredients that they had left in the supermarket. Chin Lai looked at her x-ray carefully, his gaze gradually becoming serious. He looked up at Gunyanji, who was happily eating on the sofa, and said calmly, "Nyenji, did you injure the ligaments in your ankle before?" Gunyanji had just taken a bite of the snack and quickly swallowed it when she heard that. "No. My ankle has never been injured before. This is the first time I've sprained it." She had never been so seriously injured in all the years of military training with Hua Xiaoheng. She had always been in good health and had always been active. The number of times she had caught a cold in the past 6 years could be counted on one hand. But the x-ray shows that your ankle ligaments do have traces of an old injury, but it's healing well. It shouldn't be a problem. Chin Lai showed Gunyanji the traces on the x-ray. "Look here. If it hadn't been injured before, it would be smooth. But there's a small bump here, which means it was broken and then reconnected." Gunyanji looked at the x-ray image of her ankle in surprise. After a while she smiled and said, "Brother Chin, you're amazing. These scans only show a few bones in my eyes. I can't see anything different at all. If normal people can see it, why do we need doctors?" Chin Lai actually joked. He said bluntly, "Maybe you were injured when you were young." Gunyanji shut her mouth. She didn't remember anything from her childhood, so she couldn't say for sure. But something suddenly flashed through her mind, and she instinctively asked Chin Lai, "Brother Chin, you're saying that my ankle ligaments are old injuries from when I was young? You've never had an ankle injury in the 6 years you've been with Hua Xiao. Of course, except for this time." Chin Lai chuckled. "So the injury on the ligaments must have been done before you were 12. Before I was 12? Gunyanji tried to recall, but her normally intelligent brain started to hurt uncontrollably as soon as it crossed the red line from 6 years ago. She covered her head and sat on the sofa in the corner with a pale face. She took a long time to recover and said bitterly, "Will I never regain my memory? That's hard to say. The human brain is the most amazing thing. Maybe one day you'll be stimulated by the same event and remember again." Chin Lai patted her shoulder and comforted her softly. Gunyanji yelped, "Brother Chin, why are you so strong? My back is about to be broken by you." Her back spasmed and it was difficult to sit up. She had no choice but to lie down on the sofa. Chin Lai quickly looked at the x-ray on her back and couldn't help but gasp. "Your spine is indeed injured. If it wasn't for the x-ray, I really wouldn't have been able to tell. Don't sit and don't move. I'll put a bandage on your waist, apply some ointment, and give you an injection. It's best to stay in bed for 10 days. Otherwise, if there are any sequelae, your life will be over." It was the second watch. Begging for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Thanks to Little One Kiss for the Heshabi this morning. Mwah. Oh, __. Oh. Chapter 419. The x-ray showed that the displacement of the spine was very obvious, which meant that the condition was very serious. After carefully looking at the x-ray, Chin Lai wiped the sweat from his forehead with lingering fear and said to Gunyanji, "Luckily, Hua Xiaoheng tied you up with a seatbelt in the car so that you couldn't move. Otherwise, you would have been paralyzed. The worst thing to do with spinal injuries was to tie her up like Hua Xiaoheng had done. She couldn't move at all and couldn't exert any force on her spine. That was the only way to prevent her injury from worsening. Even if Qinlai had been there, he would have made the same decision. He would have tied her up tightly and sent her to the hospital for corrective surgery. Is that serious? Gu Nianji couldn't believe it. I only bumped into that shopping cart, and I didn't feel particularly uncomfortable. It was only because you patted me a few times that I felt like I was being pricked by needles. Spinal injuries are like that. By the time you feel uncomfortable, it has already worsened to a certain extent. Qinlai shrugged and looked down to pick up another medical record. He wrote quickly as he said, "I'm worried. I have to do an MRI on you to see how serious it is." Gu Nianji closed her eyes and collapsed weakly on the round sofa in the corner. She murmured, "Can you not let Hua Xiao know?" Qinlai grinned and said, "Of course, that's impossible." Gu Nianji didn't want to speak anymore. She lay on the sofa motionlessly and kept thinking about how to appease Hua Xiaoheng's anger. Most people couldn't tell if Hua Xiaoheng was angry or not. Even his personal secretaries and orderlies had always found it difficult to detect his emotional changes from his expression and eyes. Gu Nianji was an exception. Perhaps she was more sensitive than others, or perhaps it was because she had grown up with Hua Xiaoheng and knew him better than others. Or perhaps it was because she had spent more time studying Hua Xiaoheng than others. Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang obviously didn't have the unique conditions that Gu Nianji had. Both of them stood in front of Hua Xiaoheng's desk and looked at him in confusion. "Hua Xiao, Nianji's injury isn't that serious. You don't have to do this, right?" Hua Xiaoheng looked up at them. His entire body was hidden behind the shadow of the desk lamp, so his expression appeared a little dark. However, he would never admit that it was his mood that was dark. It was because he was in the shadow of the lamp that his expression appeared dark because of the lack of light. His voice was still deep and steady as he tapped the desk rhythmically with the 5 fingers of one hand. He said calmly, "This has nothing to do with Nianji's injury. Su Piaohong, as a member of the security force, knowingly broke the law. We were only fulfilling our duty as citizens and filed a complaint against her according to the law." Yin Shixiang glanced at Zhao Liangzi. Zhao Liangzi rubbed his nose and muttered, "You're the chief, you're right, but Su Piaohong really needs a lesson. Last time." He was referring to the time he had forced Hua Xiaoheng's car to stop for no reason. "Both last time and this time," Hua Xiaoheng said calmly, "I've already warned her last time. If she does it again, she'll be punished for both crimes." Yin Shixiang understood and quickly said, "Chief, I'll take care of it." Of course, Hua Xiaoheng couldn't personally deal with this kind of thing. Even the Special Operations Forces couldn't do anything about it. They could only use their people in the local departments to help. Hua Xiaoheng received a call from Qinlai after he finished dealing with the matters here. He said guiltily, "Hua Xiao, I've wronged you. I'm afraid Nianji's injury is not as simple as it seems." Hua Xiaoheng was slightly taken aback. "Speak." His voice became deeper and deeper, like a heavy hammer. It hit Qinlai so hard that he didn't dare to joke around with him anymore. Qinlai held the internal line and composed himself. He said in a low voice, "Come over. We'll talk face to face." Hua Xiaoheng's eyes narrowed. He held the pen in his hand and prepared to record it down. "What is it?" "I just did an MRI on Nianji." Qinlai looked at the results in front of him. "Her back spine. Almost every joint has been slightly displaced." Hua Xiaoheng suddenly used force and broke the pen in his hand in half. He stood up from behind his desk. "It's just a bump. Is it really that serious?" Qinlai's voice became even lower. "Come over. We'll talk face to face." Hua Xiaoheng quickly hung up and left his office. He returned to Qinlai's office on the 6th floor of the military base hospital. Gu Nianji had already returned to the hospital bed. She wasn't in Qinlai's office. Hua Xiaoheng walked to Qinlai. He put one hand in his trouser pocket and tapped on his desk with the other. He urged calmly, "Hurry up and tell me. Don't keep me in suspense." Qinlai stood up and led Hua Xiaoheng to his laboratory to talk. It was more secluded and better equipped. He placed the MRI results in front of Hua Xiaoheng and said in a low voice, "These spinal joint displacement conditions are not new." "What do you mean?" Hua Xiaoheng frowned. "It's not this time? But Nianji hasn't been injured before." "I know. That's why I deduced that it was caused during the years she lost her memory." Qinlai's face was full of heartache. His round face was scrunched up. "Have you ever seen someone abuse a cat?" Hua Xiaoheng asked. "What does this have to do with Nianji?" "I've seen an abused kitten. Its 4 legs and tail were tied up and it was thrown down from a high floor. The fall almost broke its spine into pieces. Nianji's condition is very similar to that kitten's. Of course, it's not as serious. It can also be said that it was the result of someone deliberately controlling the strength of the fall. All the bones in her body showed signs of being squeezed and distorted. Of course, her healing ability is also incredible. These are all old injuries. In fact, they have already healed. If it wasn't for the MRI, it wouldn't have been visible at all. That's why we never noticed anything wrong. Tell me, who would be so cruel as to do such a thing to Nianji before she was 12? Qinlai was practically whispering into Hua Xiaoheng's ear. These conditions were indeed not to be known to outsiders. Hua Xiaoheng was even more unwilling to let the military know about Gu Nianji's condition. He clenched his fists. The darkness between his brows was like the sky before a storm. It was dark and lightless, and the wind and thunder were about to blow. Could it have something to do with her family? Hua Xiaoheng enunciated each word carefully. He was actively searching for Gu Nianji's family. Even if there was only a 1 in 5 chance, Gu Nianji's family actually didn't love her like they thought, then wouldn't finding her family be like sending a lamb into a tiger's den? But if he didn't find them, he would never be able to get past the military. Hua Xiaoheng was a bit irritated for the first time. He took out a cigarette and asked Qinlai before lighting it up, "Can I smoke?" Qinlai made a whatever gesture. In fact, he also really wanted a cigarette. He understood Hua Xiaoheng's determination to find Gu Nianji's family better than anyone else. But if the result was worse than not finding her family, how would they face it? After finishing the cigarette, Hua Xiaoheng made a decision. He threw the cigarette butt into the trash can and said to Qinlai, "Treat her injuries first. I'll go take care of the people that need to be taken care of. After that, we still have to find her family, but don't say that it has anything to do with Nianji. Find them first. If it really was someone who harmed her all those years ago, and Nianji had actually escaped, then he wouldn't let the person who harmed her go, even if it was her family." This was the first watch. Begging for monthly votes and recommendation votes. 7 p.m. the next watch. Mwah. Oh, oh. Chapter 420. Once Hua Xiaoheng made his decision, he didn't dwell on it anymore. He was a man of action and never talked nonsense until he was done. Why did he do the MRI? Hua Xiaoheng composed himself and began to investigate Qinlai's actions. He narrowed his eyes to hide his piercing gaze, but the pressure was just as great. Qinlai was most afraid of being stared at by Hua Xiaoheng like this. It was like a hawk staring at its prey, and it gave him a great sense of oppression. Qinlai wiped the fine beads of sweat on his forehead with a handkerchief and stammered. "Nianji's spine is still injured. It's just a small injury. Of course, it's not as serious as her previous injuries. It's just a slight displacement. I've already fixed it for her. She'll definitely recover after lying in bed for half a month." Spine displacement? You're telling me it's a minor injury? Hua Xiaoheng cocked his head and squeezed the words out through gritted teeth. He strode forward and grabbed Qinlai's collar with one hand. "Give me a certificate of serious injury immediately. I need it." Qinlai nodded quickly. Right away. Right away. But how am I supposed to do it if you don't put me down?" Hua Xiaoheng let go and Qinlai slid to the floor. His legs went weak and he almost lost his footing. He quickly steadied himself by supporting himself against the wall and ran towards his desk. Hua Xiaoheng watched him coldly from behind until Qinlai handed him the certificate of serious injury. Hua Xiaoheng took it and asked, "Where's Nianji?" "In that ward. I just performed corrective surgery on her. She'll have to lie in bed for the next 10 days. Qinlai pointed in the direction of the ward. "Over there." He added, "Her injury is special, so it's not suitable for her to be moved. Hua Xiaoheng, you have to let her stay here." He knew Hua Xiaoheng's personality. Even if Gu Nianji was hospitalized, she would have to stay at his house. He wouldn't let her spend the night outside. However, the situation was indeed special this time. Gu Nianji's injury was particularly taboo to be moved around. Jumping around was also strictly forbidden. Hua Xiaoheng was silent for a long time and didn't speak. He took the certificate of serious injury to the other ward to see Gu Nianji. On the hospital bed, Gu Nianji lay with her eyes closed on the snow-white hospital sheets. Her face was still pale and her long, thick and dark eyelashes stood out even more. It was like 2 black crescents had been drawn on her snow-white face. Her eyelashes trembled slightly as she breathed, and she looked like a lifeless doll. Hua Xiaoheng's heart ached. He sat down in front of her bed and tucked her in. However, out of the corner of his eye, he saw something strange under the blanket. Hua Xiaoheng lifted the corner of the blanket. Gu Nianji was strapped tightly to the hospital bed with surgical straps. She could only maintain a supine position and couldn't even lift a finger. He had to maintain this position for 10 days? Hua Xiaoheng's eyes were filled with anger as he clenched his fists. Someone had to pay the price for this. Hua Xiaoheng suddenly turned around and left Gu Nianji's room. Chen Lai heard the door open and hurried out, but saw that Hua Xiaoheng had already strode away. He had no choice but to call Zhao Liangzi immediately and briefly explain Gu Nianji's injuries. He also said that Hua Xiao was very angry and asked him to keep an eye on her. Zhao Liangzi was also shocked when he heard about Gu Nianji's injuries. He quickly asked, "Dr. Chen, is it really that serious?" "I guarantee it's real." Chen Lai was unhappy. He couldn't put on airs in front of Hua Xiaoheng, but in front of people like Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang, he had absolute authority and was not to be questioned. "Dr. Chen, that's not what I meant." Zhao Liangzi quickly apologized. "I was just too shocked." Zhao Liangzi pounded the table. "I even spoke up for Su Piaohong and advised Hua Xiao not to pursue the matter. I didn't know she was so despicable. She caused so much pain to Nianji, so she must be pursued. I won't agree to not pursue the matter." Zhao Liangzi hung up angrily and immediately sent a text to Yin Shixiang. He briefly explained Gu Nianji's injuries and asked him to deal with this matter severely. Yin Shixiang had just gotten in touch with an insider in the Special Operations Forces about the conflict between Su Piaohong and Gu Nianji. Yin Shixiang was also furious when he saw Zhao Liangzi's text. He changed the topic and ordered the person, "Su Piaohong must be taught a lesson this time. Don't hold back, just do it. I'll back you up." The person nodded. "Don't worry, Chief. She was in the wrong in the first place. She used her father as the deputy chief of staff and caused a lot of trouble in the bureau. Our chief was the one who settled it for her. This time, I don't think even the chief of police will be able to settle it." Yin Shixiang pounded the table and sneered. "Let them come. Just come and plead for her. Corruption, shamelessness, jumping up and down, all kinds of scams. I'd like to see who dares to go against us." For the entire Saturday afternoon, Su Piaohong's house was in a complete mess. They left the warehouse supermarket at noon and went straight to General Ji's house to ask him about Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji. General Ji didn't want to talk about it. He only told them that Hua Xiaoheng used to be Gu Nianji's guardian. Gu Nianji grew up with Hua Xiaoheng, so Hua Xiaoheng valued her a lot. Su Piaohong and Mrs. Su were relieved. They were about to leave when the video incident came out. Because it was related to Hua Xiaoheng, the person in charge of social media quickly contacted the military's propaganda department. The news spread to all the major departments in the military and finally reached General Ji. Hua Xiaoheng was his favorite general and related to the Special Operations Forces. Such a big thing had to be reported to General Ji. General Ji's personal secretary rushed in to report and saw that the female lead of the video, Su Piaohong, was at General Ji's house. He looked at her sternly and whispered a few words in General Ji's ear. He then took out his phone and showed the video to General Ji. Because Su Piaohong and her mother were there, the person took out his earphones and put them on General Ji. This way he could hear the conversation in the video but not Su Piaohong and her mother. General Ji was a hot-tempered person. His expression changed several times, from surprise to anger and indignation. After watching the video, he was so angry that he couldn't speak. He looked up at Su Piaohong and her mother, who were about to leave, and raised his voice. "Wait a minute." Mrs. Su turned around, thinking that General Ji wanted to ask them to stay for lunch. She quickly waved her hand. "You're too kind, General Ji. We'll go home for lunch. We won't disturb you." "Lunch?" General Ji laughed coldly. "Who's asking you to stay for lunch?" He turned to look at the shocked Su Piaohong and said coldly, "Piaohong, you saw Xiaoheng this morning?" "Yes, I saw him." Su Piaohong quickly calmed down and nodded. "Something happened at the supermarket, so my mother and I came here to ask about it." "Is that so?" General Ji was slightly annoyed. Su Piaohong looked like a straightforward and generous girl, but it turned out that she also knew how to avoid the important and dwell on the trivial. It was really hard to find someone who was the same in front of others. General Ji sighed. He was also at fault in this matter. He shouldn't have shown his affection for Su Piaohong so obviously. The mother and daughter were obviously using a feather as a token of authority. "What happened? Can you tell me?" General Ji asked slowly as he sat down on the sofa in the living room. I met Major General Hua, but he denied that he was Major General Hua, so..." Su Piaohong smiled sheepishly. "You know, I'm a straightforward person and I can't stand people lying to my face. So, my tone wasn't very polite." She stuck out her tongue mischievously, looking like a cute child begging for forgiveness in front of her parents after getting into trouble. General G only felt that it hurt his eyes. He said he wasn't, so you called out his identity in public? General G's voice suddenly rose an octave. He stood up abruptly and pointed at Su Piaohong angrily. Who are you to him? What obligation does he have to answer you? You, leave from me. Don't ever come to my house again. This was blatantly chasing them away. Su Piaohong and Mrs. Su were really scared out of their wits. They stood at the entrance of the living room not knowing what to do. They felt awkward, wronged, and extremely uneasy. General G's wife heard General G's roar and quickly came out of the room. Old G, what can't you just say? How can I take it when you talk to me like that? Then she added, don't you always like Piaohong? If she did something wrong you should teach her properly. She didn't do anything wrong. She did break the law. General G interrupted his wife and said coldly, even if Speaker Long or Prime Minister Do interceded, it would be useless, let alone you. Su Piaohong, go back and wait for the organization to deal with it. Leave and don't come back again. It was the second watch. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Mwah. Oh, and oh. Chapter 421. General G's wife kept quiet when it came to work. She looked away and sighed. I don't know about that. Old G, I'll go in first. She shook her head at Su Piaohong and her mother and turned to walk into the lounge. Su Piaohong was shocked and angry. She had never imagined that General G and his wife, who had always been kind to her and looked up to her, would turn against her. Tears streamed down her face and she asked, choking, Uncle G, what did I do wrong? Why are you treating me like this? What do you mean by breaking the law? I don't understand. I swear to God I've always been doing the right thing. When did I break the law? You have to tell me or I won't take the blame. Mrs. Su panicked. This child was being unreasonable again. It was fine if she was being unreasonable with other people, but she was being unreasonable with General G. Wasn't she looking for death? Piaohong, shut up. Let's go back first. There might be a misunderstanding. Let's go back and clarify it with your father. Mrs. Su kept winking at Su Piaohong and forcefully dragged her out. Su Piaohong stubbornly refused to leave. She clung to the doorpost and shouted, I'm doing the right thing. Sit up straight. I didn't do anything wrong. I have a clear conscience. Why should I leave? They're the ones who framed me. Slap. Before Su Piaohong could finish her sentence, Mrs. Su had already slapped her angrily. She growled, Are you done? I said we'll talk at home. Why are you arguing with General G here? The guards at the door stared at the mother and daughter. If they didn't leave they would have no choice but to chase them away. After all, General G had given them an order. They had to obey. The sound of a row of guns being pulled rang out in the courtyard. Su Piaohong and Mrs. Su looked up in shock to see a row of black muzzles pointing at them. They were scared out of their wits and screamed as they stumbled out of General G's courtyard. When they got home, Deputy Chief of Staff Su was still reading a magazine on the sofa. When he saw Su Piaohong crying so hard that her eyes were swollen and there was an obvious handprint on her face, he threw the magazine away and stood up angrily. He rushed to the mother and daughter and asked, What happened? Piaohong, who hit you? Who dares to hit my daughter? Does he want to die? Dad. Su Piaohong was so touched that she threw herself into Deputy Chief of Staff Su's arms and cried, Dad, you have to give me justice. I was bullied. Mrs. Su pushed her away from Deputy Chief of Staff Su's arms and pointed at Su Piaohong angrily. Go back to your room and reflect on yourself. Don't come out and cause trouble. It was the first time Su Piaohong had been hit by Mrs. Su. She felt wronged, but Mrs. Su was furious. She stomped her feet and yelled, Lock me up for the rest of my life if you can. Not coming out. I won't marry anyone. Get married, get married. You only know how to get married. Aren't you ashamed to talk about getting married all the time? Mrs. Su waved her hand and wanted to hit her again when she saw this. Deputy Chief of Staff Su quickly grabbed Mrs. Su's hand and tried to calm her down. All right, let's talk this out. You didn't comfort your child when she was bullied outside and instead hit her. Do you feel guilty? Isn't she your biological daughter? That's why we need to discipline her strictly. Mrs. Su thought about General G's expression today and felt more and more uneasy. After chasing Su Piaohong upstairs, Mrs. Su quickly grabbed Deputy Chief of Staff Su's hand and said anxiously, Piaohong seems to have caused trouble. General G threw a big tantrum today and almost chased us out. Why don't you go outside and ask what happened? What? Deputy Chief of Staff Su's eyes almost fell out of their sockets. What did you do? How did you make General G so angry? He even chased you out. Oh my God, was it you or Piaohong? Of course it's your precious daughter. Mrs. Su pouted. Just now, at General G's house, if I hadn't slapped her and pulled her away, she would have gotten into a fight with General G. Don't you think our daughter is a little simple-minded? Deputy Chief of Staff Su didn't have an outstanding family background. He had relied on his own abilities to rise from a soldier to the position of Deputy Chief of Staff of the Operations Department. He was more intelligent than Su Piaohong and her mother. He knew that something must have happened. It couldn't be a small matter for General G to be so angry. But Su Piaohong had been with her mother the entire day. How could she have done something so serious? Deputy Chief of Staff Su looked at his wife. After being married for so many years, he knew his wife very well. Even though she had a few flaws that couldn't cover up her beauty, the general direction was always right. So when exactly did Su Piaohong do something? He was lost in thought. The living room of the Su family was quiet. Only the ticking of the grandfather clock could be heard. Just as Deputy Chief of Staff Su was about to go out and ask around, his phone suddenly rang. At the same time, an earth-shattering scream came from Su Piaohong's room upstairs. Then there was a rumbling sound as if something was rolling down from the second floor. Deputy Chief of Staff Su and Mrs. Su stood up together and looked towards the stairs. Dad, Mom, you guys have to help me. Someone recorded me and posted it on the internet. It turned out that Su Piaohong had rushed down from the second floor. She lost her balance and almost rolled down the stairs. Luckily, the Su family's house was a small high-rise duplex. The stairs from the second floor to the first floor were only a few steps, and there was a thick carpet on the floor. Su Piaohong didn't get hurt. She climbed up from the floor holding the phone in her hand. Her face was streaked with tears as she screamed at Deputy Chief of Staff Su and Mrs. Su, "Someone recorded me. I want him to go to jail. I want him to go to the 18th level of hell. How dare he mess with me? He must be tired of living." Deputy Chief of Staff Su was stunned. He ignored her and walked to the French window in the corner of the living room to answer the call. "Xiaoming? What's up?" Xiaoming was Deputy Chief of Staff Su's trusted subordinate in the Operations Department. She was like his personal secretary. Of course, Deputy Chief of Staff Su's rank wasn't high enough to have his own personal secretary, so Xiaoming wasn't under his name. Xiaoming's anxious voice came from the phone. "Deputy Chief of Staff Su, your daughter Piaohong is in big trouble. Go online and see the hottest video on social media." Another video? Deputy Chief of Staff Su couldn't help but look back at the mother and daughter in the middle of the living room. They were huddled together looking at the phone in Su Piaohong's hand. Deputy Chief of Staff Su hesitated for a moment. He followed Xiaoming's instructions and took out another phone to open the social media app. Once he opened it, the hottest video and trending topic were all the same. It was called "Time to Take Medicine," "Crazy Girl Scams at Supermarket," "Major General Turns a Blind Eye." Deputy Chief of Staff Su's heart thumped, and his hands started to shake. He clicked on the video with trembling hands. After watching for a while, he realized that the video was no longer viewable. But in just a short while, he had already seen everything clearly. The woman who was yelling loudly in the video was his daughter, Su Piaohong. The B***th with a disdainful look on her face was his wife. The mother and daughter had gone to the supermarket in the morning and caused so much trouble. Deputy Chief of Staff Su's face darkened. Xiaoming continued on the phone. "Deputy Chief of Staff Su, you have to be prepared. This video has already reached General G. Are you going to ask for help? Or ask General G's wife for help? This is not an ordinary mistake. This is a serious leak of secrets." Deputy Chief of Staff Su's face turned from red to white. The corners of his mouth twitched and he almost fainted. He steadied himself by leaning against the wall and coughed. He tried to calm himself down and asked, "Who else knows about this?" If he wanted to ask for help, he had to bribe these people. Otherwise, not only would Piaohong's future be in jeopardy, she might even face jail time. Little Meng took a deep breath. "Who else knows about it?" "Deputy Chief of Staff Su, you still don't realize the seriousness of this matter. The entire military knows, the entire nation knows, maybe even the whole world knows." Clatter. The phone in Deputy Chief of Staff Su's hand fell to the ground. The battery fell out and the phone screen shattered on the marble floor like a cracked spider web. "Dad, these people are too much. I'm going to sue them. They took pictures of me." Su Piaohong rushed over and said angrily, "And Major General Hua, look, is this his back?" Su Piaohong had taken a screenshot of Hua Xiaoheng's back just now. She wanted to use it as evidence to argue with him. This was the first night watch. Begging for monthly votes and recommendation votes. P.S. Thank you, Beiji's ring, for tipping the Heshabi yesterday. Mwah. 7 p.m. the second night watch. Oh, and oh. Chapter 422. She didn't know what had happened, but she couldn't watch the video on social media anymore. Luckily she had screenshotted it. Otherwise she wouldn't be able to explain it to anyone. Only the screenshot of Hua Xiaoheng's back was still in her phone. That was her strongest evidence. The person who took the video is despicable. How dare he say I'm a love-struck fool? I'm going to sue him for defaming my reputation. Su Piaohong's tears welled up in her eyes as she spoke. Deputy Chief of Staff Su's face darkened. He waved his arm and looked at Su Piaohong's helpless expression. He couldn't bring himself to continue the fight. He stomped his feet and said fiercely, "Stay at home and don't go anywhere. I'm going to ask someone what's going on." Deputy Chief of Staff Su practically dashed out of the door and went to a few familiar colleagues' houses. "Old Su, this matter is a little complicated and it involves the special forces. We can't do anything about it. Old Su, keep your daughter in check. We've always heard that your daughter is untainted by dirt and looks down on children of officials like us, so she's not willing to play with children of people like us. Now, it seems like she's really never played with children of people like us. She knows almost nothing about the military. Little Su, since we've been comrades for so many years, please go and beg General G. Leave your daughter alone. Her crime is too serious. The Supreme Military Council is already having a meeting to discuss this serious matter. I heard that General G is going to do a review at the meeting." The last piece of news was whispered to Deputy Chief of Staff Su by his old superior. He really didn't want to see a capable Deputy Chief of Staff's career dragged down because of his wife and daughter. However, when Deputy Chief of Staff Su heard that General G was going to do a review at the Supreme Military Council meeting, he knew that it was going to be difficult to salvage the situation. He was only glad that his daughter didn't join the military. She was only an intern police officer. At most, she wouldn't be a police officer anymore. She could do something else or study abroad. As for his daughter wanting to be transferred to the Special Forces, Deputy Chief of Staff Su had already given up hope. The success of this matter depended on General G's efforts. Now that General G definitely wouldn't agree, they gave up on the idea. When he got home, he saw his wife sitting on the sofa. His daughter was half kneeling on the ground and lying on his wife's lap. She was crying so hard that her shoulders were trembling. Deputy Chief of Staff Su's anger turned into a long sigh. "Piaohong, your father is back. Go and ask him what's going on." Mrs. Su pushed Su Piaohong up and pouted at Deputy Chief of Staff Su. Su Piaohong wiped her tears with the back of her hand and walked up to Deputy Chief of Staff Su. She sobbed and asked, "Dad, what happened?" "Nothing." Deputy Chief of Staff Su patted her head. "Go back and work hard. Don't be so reckless again." After a pause, he continued, "Don't even think about transferring to the Special Operations Forces. You definitely won't be able to go there." "What? How could this be? Why?" Su Piaohong raised her head abruptly and looked at Deputy Chief of Staff Su with her big round eyes. "Dad, did I fail? Were the requirements of the Special Forces very strict? But I remember Uncle G said." "That's enough." Deputy Chief of Staff Su interrupted Su Piaohong sternly. He wanted to scold her, but when he saw her red and swollen eyes, he swallowed his words and changed his tone. "Be a good cop. If you don't want to be a cop anymore, Mom and Dad will send you to study abroad. Once you're done, you can settle down abroad." Su Piaohong's eyes were red and swollen. When Mama Su heard this, she was unhappy. "Old Su, what are you talking about? Even if I can't enter the Special Forces, I don't have to go overseas, right?" She walked over and pushed Deputy Chief of Staff Su's arm. "If she goes overseas to settle down, what will you do? You will never be able to get promoted again." She still wanted to be the wife of a general. Deputy Chief of Staff Su was still a long way from the rank of Major General. But if Su Piaohong really went overseas to settle down, Deputy Chief of Staff Su would never be able to get promoted again. This was an unwritten rule in the military. Things were different now. In the past, having connections overseas was a plus, but now it was a minus. Deputy Chief of Staff Su wanted to laugh bitterly. Would he still have a chance to get promoted after such a big incident? He would be lucky if he wasn't forced to change jobs. But in order not to worry the mother and daughter, Deputy Chief of Staff Su didn't say a word. He only reminded them, now is the time of the storm. You have to be careful and keep a low profile. Forget about the video, it's better to avoid trouble. How can we do that? Su Piaohong was furious. This stupid video ruined my marriage. I won't let the person who took the video off the hook. Piaohong, do you understand what I'm saying? Deputy Chief of Staff Su saw that Su Piaohong wasn't going to let it go. He had no choice but to stop her from being silly. If you continue to pester her, who knows what kind of trouble you'll get yourself into. After a lot of persuasion, Su Piaohong was finally stopped. Su Piaohong went back to her room in a huff. Mrs. Su thought about Gu Nianji, who had pretended to sprain her ankle when she was hit by the shopping cart. She lowered her voice and said to Deputy Chief of Staff Su, also that Miss Gu pretended to sprain her ankle this morning and helped Major General Hua escape. What do you mean escape? Deputy Chief of Staff Su was confused. Explain it clearly. Mrs. Su recounted the entire incident from beginning to end. Deputy Chief of Staff Su folded his hands behind his back and paced around the room. Finally he made up his mind. I'll call Major General Hua and ask about Miss Gu's injury. If it's serious, we'll visit her as a family and try to get her forgiveness. If it's not serious, we still have to show our sincerity. I hope it's not serious. That way there's still a chance for things to turn around. Mrs. Su nodded. That's what I said too. But with Piaohong like that, do you think we should bring her along to visit her? Deputy Chief of Staff Su glanced upstairs and shook his head. Just the two of us. We've spoiled this child too much. She doesn't know her place. We need to make her suffer a little before she learns not to be willful. The couple discussed for a long time before Deputy Chief of Staff Su decided to personally call the Special Operations Forces to talk to Major General Hua Xiaoheng. It was already Saturday evening, and the clouds in the sky were like rainbow-colored ribbons that lit up the entire sky. Deputy Chief of Staff Su dialed the Special Operations Forces number for a long time before the call went through. He then used a lot of effort to transfer the call to Hua Xiaoheng's office. However, the person who picked up the phone was not Hua Xiaoheng, but his personal secretary Zhao Liangzi. Hello Mr. Zhao. This is Su Giki, the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Military Operations Department. There's a misunderstanding with Major General Hua, and I would like to personally apologize to him. Deputy Chief of Staff Su said sincerely to Zhao Liangzi, hoping to see Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji. I heard Miss Gu accidentally sprained her ankle today. Is it serious? Zhao Liangzi's voice was very cold. He was wearing a Bluetooth headset and had his hands behind his head. He stretched out his long legs under the desk and said coolly, Deputy Chief of Staff Su, if it's about your daughter, I'm sorry, but we can't discuss this right now. Even Major General Hua is no exception. What? We're sincerely apologizing. Deputy Chief of Staff Su felt that Hua Xiaoheng was being too aggressive. It wasn't like he wasn't going to apologize. Did he have to be so sarcastic? Not every mistake can be resolved with an apology, Deputy Chief of Staff Su. Breaking the law is punishable by law. You don't need me to teach you that, do you? Zhao Liangzi thought of Gu Nianji being chained to the hospital bed and felt very sad. They had watched the little girl grow up to be in such a predicament. It was too painful. It was worse than being injured themselves. Secretary Zhao, why are you saying that? How did our Piaohong break the law? Deputy Chief of Staff Su would never admit that Su Piaohong's actions constituted a leak of classified information. He was willing to go all out for his daughter. Not break the law? Because she attacked our Nianji and caused her to be bedridden with serious injuries. She won't be able to move for 10 days to half a month. Such a serious matter, how could you just gloss over it so casually? Of course, it's not up to us to decide whether or not she broke the law. It's up to the military court. Zhao Liangzi hung up and didn't speak to him again. Deputy Chief of Staff Su paled when he heard the words military court. He stammered, how did she get seriously injured? Wasn't she just bumped into a shopping cart? Was Gu Nianji made of porcelain? Did she break just from a simple touch? He cursed Gu Nianji's injury in his heart. Frustrated, he sat alone in the study until dawn. The next morning, Su Piaohong was already dressed. She rushed down the stairs with a bag of fresh milk and 2 small pieces of bread. Mom, Dad, I'm going to work. The traffic police had rotational days off, so it didn't have to be on Saturday or Sunday. This week, Su Piaohong had to start work on Sunday. She drove her car to the police station and went up to the 8th floor. When she arrived at her desk, a colleague poked her head into her office. Su Piaohong, boss is looking for you. He's in his office. Su Piaohong quickly reported to the superintendent's office. Superintendent Liang, you're looking for me? What's the matter? Superintendent Liang sat behind his desk and looked at her sternly. Piaohong, you've been filed a complaint against you. You're temporarily suspended for investigation. Hand over your gun and bullets, then go to HR and hand over your access card. Go home for a few days. Huh? Who filed a complaint against me? Su Piaohong was furious. She felt that these people had teamed up to cause trouble for her. Let them in. I want to ask them personally what's going on. Su Piaohong, don't you know the consequences of what you've done? A female colleague walked out of the small utility room with a coffee cup in her arms. Her expression was very ugly. Look at this, the founder and leader of our Special Operations Forces was easily sold off by you. You even sold him off for free and you even paid for it. Su Piaohong, you're actually a pig under human skin, aren't you? Why are you scolding me? Su Piaohong was furious. She used to look down on the other party who was an experienced third-class police officer. But now she didn't dare to do so. Who's scolding you? In this day and age, speaking the truth is scolding people. How fragile must your heart be, little princess? The female colleague snorted and returned to her office. Su Piaohong was shaking with anger. She wanted to run to the female colleague's office and argue with her, but another colleague held her back. Don't be angry at her. She hates people who leak secrets. Her brother used to be a member of the Special Operations Forces. He died in the line of duty a few years ago because someone leaked secrets. Su Piaohong shuddered. She didn't dare to argue with the female colleague anymore. She took out her gun and the remaining bullets and put them in a transparent plastic bag. She sent it to the firearms department to be registered. Then she went to find Superintendent Liang. She wanted to know who had filed a complaint against her. Did she offend someone because she was too serious as a traffic officer? If that was the case, she wasn't afraid. Gu Nianji was lying on the hospital bed. She was in a deep sleep. She had started running a fever in the middle of the night on Saturday. The monitor in the hospital room sounded a shrill alarm. Xiaoheng, who was sleeping on the sofa not far from the hospital bed, jumped up and went to Gu Nianji's bed to take a look. He saw that her body temperature had risen. Her lips were chapped and cracked, and her hands and feet were scalding. Qinlai rushed over and pushed Xiaoheng. Please move aside. Please move aside. The doctor is checking. Xiaoheng moved aside. His expression was calm. His deep eyes watched Qinlai check the monitor without blinking. Qinlai's expression grew more and more serious. Nianji is running a high fever. Her situation isn't looking good. This was the 3,500-word second update. Begging for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Moi. Chapter 423. High fever. Xiaoheng's brows furrowed. Does that mean she's infected? Or that her bones aren't set properly? Or that her spine is diseased? Xiaoheng blurted out a few possibilities in the blink of an eye. Qinlai couldn't help but glance at him. You sure know a lot. Hurry up and diagnose. Cut the crap. Xiaoheng walked over and bent over to feel Gu Nianji's forehead. It was indeed burning hot. Her face was crimson, and if she wasn't running a high fever, she would be stunning. However, even though she was sick, the way she lay on the bed still had a kind of fragile beauty that was short-lived. Xiaoheng silently looked away and at the bottle rack in the corner. Qinlai took out a device and connected it to Gu Nianji's forehead. He then hung an 4. He originally wanted to give her an 4, but changed his mind when he thought about Gu Nianji's body condition. Qinlai pushed his round eyes away from the bridge of his nose and smiled sheepishly. Xiao, do you want to continue observing her? Nianji's fever is still under control. Xiaoheng glanced at him and pointed to a number on the device. Her fever is almost 40 degrees and you're telling me it's still under control? I'm not a medical student, but I know that a fever over 39 degrees is considered high. If it's prolonged, it'll burn the brain. Are you saying she's too smart? No. Of course not. Am I that kind of person? Qinlai quickly retorted. I watched Nianji grow up. How can I not be responsible for her? But you know her condition. Do you remember the last time she was infected with H3AB7? She was in a coma for 2 weeks and had a high fever several times. I didn't give her an 4 and let her carry it through on her own. What? Xiaoheng revealed a rare expression of shock. You actually dared to do that? You don't remember giving me a military order, do you? Of course I remember. Qinlai was extremely curious about Gu Nianji's constitution. As an outstanding medical genius, the fact that he refrained from dissecting her was already a sign of affection for her. But don't forget, we also came to an agreement for your mother's illness. Xiaoheng fell silent. He looked at Gunyanji, then at Chenlai. He put his hands in his trouser pockets and stood ramrod straight in front of Gunyanji's bed. After a long silence he finally said, "Keep it within 40 degrees. If it's any higher we'll have to cool it down first." Of course, of course." Seeing that Hua Xiaoheng had acquiesced, Chenlai hurriedly nodded. "I'll look after her myself. I won't let anyone else do it." Hua Xiaoheng found a seat and crossed his legs. He placed one hand on the armrest of the sofa and said calmly, "There's no need to trouble Master Chen. I'll look after her myself." Chenlai knew that Hua Xiaoheng didn't trust him. But this was good. To be honest, Chenlai didn't really trust himself. In the face of Gunyanji's medical miracle, could he control himself and not use her as a lab rat? At least with Hua Xiaoheng around he wouldn't dare do anything to Gunyanji. Therefore Chenlai didn't object at all. He smiled and said, "Okay, I'll make you a cup of tea. Don't worry about me. Go see how Nyenji is." Hua Xiaoheng raised his chin at Gunyanji. Chenlai sat behind the equipment and began to focus on recording. Chenlai's speculation was very accurate. On Sunday morning, when the first ray of sunlight shone through the treetops and onto the blinds of the ward, Gunyanji woke up. Her entire body was soaked as if she had just been fished out of the water. Her entire body was sore and weak, and even speaking was difficult. Therefore she didn't speak and only moaned. She was very thirsty and her mouth was very dry. Her voice was very small, like the purr of a kitten that had just woken up from her sleep. Hua Xiaoheng propped his head up and dozed off on the single sofa in the ward. Chenlai, who was staring at the equipment, didn't hear Gunyanji's voice, but Hua Xiaoheng did. He froze slightly and opened his eyes. His gaze fell on Gunyanji's face on the bed directly in front of him. He saw her long eyelashes tremble slightly. "Nyenji?" Hua Xiaoheng stood up and quickly walked to Gunyanji's bed. He bent down and felt her forehead. He discovered that her fever had indeed subsided, but her forehead was sweaty and her hair was twisted into strands. It was completely drenched in sweat. "Chenlai? Nyenji's fever seems to have subsided?" Hua Xiaoheng turned to look at Chenlai. Chenlai sat in front of the equipment with his eyes wide open, but his consciousness was already fuzzy. He was in a half-asleep state. Hua Xiaoheng roared again and Chenlai suddenly jumped up. "What's wrong? What's wrong? What happened? Are you going to give Nyenji a drip?" Hua Xiaoheng looked at him with disdain. "Go wash your face with cold water, then come back to see Nyenji." He paused and said, "Her fever seems to have subsided." Chenlai's entire body trembled and he was completely awake. He rushed to Gunyanji's bed and began fiddling with the equipment to check the records from last night. The equipment clearly showed that Gunyanji's temperature had reached a heaven-defying 42 degrees last night. But it quickly dropped and stabilized until it finally returned to normal. The entire process took about 6 hours. A normal person with a fever like this would never become stupid because they would be burned to death immediately. But Gunyanji? Chenlai's heart was pounding. He slowly bent down and placed the stethoscope on Gunyanji's chest. Fortunately, Gunyanji's heart was beating steadily and strongly. Not only was she alive but she was also very healthy. He checked her pulse again. It was the same frequency as her heart, so it was a sign of health. Chenlai straightened his back, and his eyes inadvertently fell on Gunyanji's sprained left foot. He was shocked to find that the swollen ankle seemed to have returned to normal. It wasn't heaven-defying that the fever had subsided so quickly, but the ankle that had swollen from dislocation and ligament strain had returned to normal overnight was a bit difficult to explain. Chenlai scratched his head awkwardly and looked at the extremely precious records again. He gritted his teeth and said to Hua Xiaoheng, "Hua Xiao, look at these records and then destroy them." "Why should I destroy them?" Hua Xiaoheng calmly took them and glanced at them. He quickly crumpled them into a ball. "Burn them." He looked at the equipment again. "Are there any records in these equipment?" "There should be, but I can't read them." Chenlai took off his glasses and rubbed them nervously. "The equipment company can read them?" Hua Xiaoheng confirmed again as he walked to the side of the equipment and began fiddling with the buttons. "Yes, it should be." Chenlai's forehead beaded with sweat again. He was truly certain that these records absolutely could not be made public. He couldn't even let the people in the Supreme Military Council know about it. Once this matter was leaked, Gunyanji's free life would definitely end. "That's good," Hua Xiaoheng said as his fingers deftly fiddled with the power cords of the equipment. Finally he pulled out 2 wires, one red and one green, and matched them together. With a sizzling sound, all the monitoring equipment in the room burned due to a power short circuit. Plumes of black smoke rose, and the smell of burnt power lines quickly filled the entire ward. The fire detector in the room immediately let out a sharp screech. Hua Xiaoheng turned to ask Chen Lai, "Can Yanji get up now?" Gu Yanji's spine was injured and originally couldn't be moved. She would have to lie in bed for 10 days to half a month. However, after observing Gu Yanji's recovery from last night, Chen Lai only gestured and opened his mouth to say weakly, "You can try." The sound of the fire detectors continued, and the sound of footsteps could already be heard outside the door. It was the guards and hospital personnel coming to put out the fire. Hua Xiaoheng made a prompt decision and bent down to untie all the belts holding Gu Yanji in place. He then picked her up. "Yanji, bear with it. I'll take you home." With that, he quickly carried her out of the room and walked towards the elevator. Chen Lai rushed out behind him. A group of firefighters in firefighting uniforms brushed past them. They rushed into the ward with fire extinguishers and sprayed the equipment that was emitting black smoke. When Hua Xiaoheng carried Gu Yanji into the elevator, he raised his eyes to look at the ward directly opposite the elevator. The white foam from the fire extinguisher was everywhere, decorating the entire ward like a snow-covered cave. Chen Lai stood beside him and said angrily, "What are you looking at? Do you know how expensive these equipment are? They're ruined just like that." "I'll pay for it," Hua Xiaoheng said briefly. "A full set of Swiss medical equipment, brand new. I'll personally pay for it. I won't let the country suffer any losses." "Ah, I was waiting for you to say that." Chen Lai happily punched Hua Xiaoheng's arm. "I've wanted to get new equipment for a long time. Thanks to Yanji, I've also gotten a new one." Hua Xiaoheng glanced at him and was about to speak when he felt a small force tugging at his collar. He looked down to see that Gu Yanji had already woken up. She stared at him with a pair of large comic book eyes and said weakly, "Put me down. I'm fine." Hua Xiaoheng still didn't speak because Chen Lai had already asked, "Yanji, your back doesn't hurt anymore? Can you feel it? Or maybe move it slightly?" Gu Yanji wrapped her arms around Hua Xiaoheng's neck and twisted in his arms to snuggle into a more comfortable position. "It doesn't hurt anymore. I'm just so tired. My bones are sore. Then it's fine. This is a normal reaction after a high fever." Chen Lai almost danced with joy. The corners of his mouth were so wide it almost stretched from his left ear to his right. He gave Hua Xiaoheng a look. "It's fine now. Hua Xiao, put her down and walk around on your own." Seeing Hua Xiaoheng's unfriendly look, Chen Lai immediately changed his words. "Let her stand on the ground for a while, just for a while. Then you can carry her back." Hua Xiaoheng looked down to ask for Gu Yanji's opinion. "Can you do it? Don't force yourself. It's fine if you can't move. I'll take care of you." Gu Yanji really didn't feel any discomfort other than soreness all over her body. Chen Lai said she had a high fever last night. This feeling was a normal reaction after a high fever. Gu Yanji coughed and looked up at Hua Xiaoheng. "I can try. This is the first update. I'm begging for monthly and recommendation votes. P.S. I wrote the second update in a hurry yesterday because it was already 2:30 in the middle of the night by the time I finished. I couldn't even keep my eyes open, so I hurriedly uploaded it and went to sleep. I saw the screenshot of the typo sent by Little Meow in the morning, so I immediately corrected it. Everyone can read it after downloading it again. Thank you, Little Meow, for helping me catch the bug. Thank you everyone for your keen eyes. Oh, and 7 o'clock in the evening." Chapter 424. Hua Xiaoheng carefully put her down. First, he let her feet touch the ground lightly and didn't use any force. After he was completely sure that her feet were fine, he protected her waist and let her try to stand up. Gu Yanji held his arm and very carefully waited on the ground. When she felt that her feet were no different from before, she finally put her weight down and slowly straightened her back and back. She stretched her body. Although even her bones felt numb, she didn't feel the discomfort from yesterday. Her back also didn't feel like it was being pricked by needles when she moved. She looked at her sprained foot and saw that it was no longer swollen. "Brother Chin, your medical skills are amazing. You're amazing." Gu Yanji stretched out her foot and swung it. She was so happy that she copied Ma Chichi and spun around on her tiptoes like she was dancing ballet. Hua Xiaoheng watched her movements without batting an eyelid. His eyes kept sweeping over her ankle. It looked like she really had recovered. Chen Lai looked like he wasn't surprised at all. He looked at Gu Yanji with almost kind eyes, as if she was his child and his proudest work. "Okay, stop dancing." Hua Xiaoheng pursed his lips and walked over to pick Gu Yanji up by her waist. The elevator doors just happened to open and he carried her out just like that. Gu Yanji was a bit uncomfortable and whispered, Actually, I can walk by myself. Yeah, but you can't leave yet. Hua Xiaoheng's voice wasn't loud, just enough for her and Qinlai to hear. You have to remember that your injury hasn't healed yet. Qinlai and Gu Nianji both froze. It was Qinlai who reacted quickly and quickly winked. That's right, that's right. Your injury hasn't healed yet. It's very serious, very serious. You have to rest at home. Although Gu Nianji didn't understand, Hua Xiaoheng and Qinlai weren't people to joke about such things, so she obediently followed their advice. She hugged Hua Xiaoheng's neck and pretended to be in pain. She looked at Qinlai out of the corner of her eye and said, "Do I have to look like this?" "Yeah, good girly one." Qinlai smiled and praised her. He followed Hua Xiaoheng out of the hospital and to Hua Xiaoheng's official residence. Because Gu Nianji was injured, Hua Xiaoheng couldn't get a stretcher in time, so he carried her all the way back to his official residence. Although the hospital and his official residence were in the same place, this place was bigger than the average place. It would take an ordinary person half an hour to walk there. However, Hua Xiaoheng walked faster than Qinlai, even though he was carrying someone. Hua Xiaoheng carried Gu Nianji into the main entrance of his official residence. Qinlai was still jogging tiredly behind them and finally caught up, panting heavily. He bent over and held his leg as he panted heavily. "Oh, Hua Xiao, I see that your body is also quite special. When should I examine it for you?" Hua Xiaoheng ignored him and carried Gu Nianji to the second floor. He took her to her room, which was the 3-bedroom suite opposite Hua Xiaoheng's master suite. Of course, Qinlai didn't follow. He was burning hot and panting as he went to the kitchen in search of water. After Hua Xiaoheng took Gu Nianji to her room, he immediately went to the bathroom to turn on the water. When he came out, he asked her, "Can you shower by yourself?" Gu Nianji's face instantly flushed. She bit her lip and actually wanted to tease him. "If I can't shower by myself, will you shower for me?" However, seeing Hua Xiaoheng's somewhat anxious expression, she resisted the urge and nodded. "I can shower." Hua Xiaoheng slowly let go and looked at her without moving. His eyes were filled with hidden concern, but he didn't show it at all. Gu Nianji quickly glanced at him, but she couldn't read his emotions from his calm face. "Hua Xiao, did something happen?" Gu Nianji paced back and forth to show that she was indeed fine. She stopped in front of Hua Xiaoheng and waved in front of his eyes. "Are you listening to me?" Hua Xiaoheng held her hand. "Go shower. There are some things that someone needs to take responsibility for." "What responsibility?" Gu Nianji thought about it. "Is it because of Miss Su?" Hua Xiaoheng nodded. "She's made too many mistakes. I've already let it go when she forced us to stop our car last time. I didn't expect her to go even further." Gu Nianji looked down and sighed. "Yeah, I understand." Gu Nianji was unhappy at the thought that Su Piaohong was Hua Xiaoheng's wife. She didn't pretend to be magnanimous and ask Hua Xiaoheng to let Su Piaohong off, but she also didn't add fuel to the fire and ask for Su Piaohong to be severely punished. In any case, what Su Piaohong did probably wasn't a small mistake of her own and was related to work. Hua Xiaoheng's work wasn't something that Gu Nianji could interfere with. She wisely chose to change the topic. She thought about it and looked up with a smile. "Okay, but Hua Xiao still owes me a meal of egg fried rice." She rubbed her stomach and let out a low cry. "I'm so hungry. I think I haven't eaten for a few days." "It's not a few days, it's about a day and a night." Hua Xiaoheng remembered it clearly. "Go take a shower. I'll make you some egg fried rice." Gu Nianji was overjoyed. She instinctively took a few steps forward and naturally wrapped her arms around Hua Xiaoheng's neck. Hua Xiaoheng lowered his head and their lips touched. However, they parted as soon as they touched. They didn't kiss deeply. Gu Nianji let go, but Hua Xiaoheng wrapped his arms around her waist and lowered his head to touch her forehead. He sighed deeply. "Why aren't you kissing me? I want to take a shower." Gu Nianji pushed Hua Xiaoheng's arm. "Also, I haven't even brushed my teeth. I don't want to continue kissing you." Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. Gu Nianji smiled slyly at him and turned to enter the bathroom. Soon, the sound of running water and Gu Nianji's humming could be heard in the bathroom. The corners of Hua Xiaoheng's lips curled up. He walked over and peeked through the crack in the bathroom door to see the hot and fragrant scene. He reached out and gently closed the bathroom door for Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji finished showering and came out of the shower with a towel wrapped around her. Her heart warmed when she saw that the bathroom door was tightly shut. She felt especially considerate. She opened the bathroom door and went to her bedroom to change. She had just blown her hair dry when she heard Hua Xiaoheng's voice coming from the bedroom door. "Nianji? The fried rice is ready. It's in your living room." Gu Nianji quickly answered and put down the hairdryer to run out. Huashao, where are you going? Hua Xiaoheng had just walked to the door when he heard Gu Nianji's voice. He stopped and turned to look at her. I still have something to do. Go lie in bed after you finish eating. He then reminded her, you're still recovering. Gu Nianji nodded. However, she remembered that tomorrow was Monday. How would she go to school? Huashao, how long will it take for me to recover? Gu Nianji blinked at Hua Xiaoheng with a knowing look. Hua Xiaoheng smiled. You have to take at least a week off. At that moment, both of them thought of Hijichu at the same time. If Gu Nianji took a week off, Hijichu would definitely rush over to ask what was going on. Hua Xiaoheng didn't want to talk about Hijichu in front of Gu Nianji. He only said vaguely, I'll get Big Xiong to help you take care of things at school. He then pushed the door open and left. Gu Nianji sighed again. However, when she saw the delicious egg-fried rice, she forgot everything and happily sat down to eat. Hua Xiaoheng walked downstairs and was about to go to his office to take care of business when Zhao Liangzi called. Hua Xiaoheng put on his Bluetooth headset and asked calmly, What's up? Zhao Liangzi first asked about Gu Nianji's injury. He then said, Hua Xiao, Deputy Chief of Staff Su brought his wife and insisted on visiting Nianji. They said they wanted to apologize to her. I won't see them. Hua Xiaoheng didn't even blink. He clearly refused. Why are you asking me this? Zhao Liangzi smiled bitterly. They came with General Ji. He could refuse Deputy Chief of Staff Su, but he couldn't refuse General Ji. He couldn't make the decision. It was the second watch. A reminder for the monthly votes and recommendation votes. Mwah. Oh, and oh. Chapter 425. Why is General Ji here? Hua Xiaoheng asked. Ask him why he's here, then invite him to the highest security conference room in the base headquarters. Understood. Zhao Liangzi's eyes lit up as he instantly understood Hua Xiaoheng's intentions. Regardless of whether the Su couple really came with General Ji or had coincidentally bumped into him at the door and was brought in by General Ji, as long as General Ji was invited to the highest security conference room in the base headquarters, he would be separated from the Su couple. This way, the Su couple would not be able to point fingers at General Ji and accuse them of disrespecting him. Zhao Liangzi personally came to the entrance of the base and said respectfully to General Ji, Hello, Chief. Hua Xiao said that you could have called if you needed anything. Why did you have to come personally? He's busy right now and can't take the call for now, but Hua Xiao asked me to invite you to conference room number 1. This way, please. He gestured for General Ji to come in. General Ji knew that the number 1 conference room of the Special Operations Forces headquarters was the highest security conference room. There were less than 5 people in the entire empire who could enter it, and it had the highest security procedures. Many people, even those from the Special Operations Forces, were not allowed to take another step within 500 meters of the conference room building. General Ji was very surprised and quickly said, I just came to see Nianji. I heard she was seriously injured. There's no need to go through so much trouble, right? Of course, no matter the reason, General Ji was still very pleased that Hua Xiaoheng was treating him with such high standards. Zhao Liangzi was already prepared and said sternly, Chief, Hua Xiao has always done things by the book. Don't you know that? You coming to our encampment is the highest standard. No one can fight for it and no one can say anything wrong. As he spoke, he glanced at Deputy Chief of Staff Su and Mrs. Su, who were standing behind General Ji. The two of them stood behind General Ji with smiles on their faces. Even General Ji's personal secretary and guards were pushed to the back of the group. Zhao Liangzi frowned but did not say anything. He stepped aside and invited General Ji into the car. General Ji nodded and retreated to the side of his private car. The personal secretary standing beside the car quickly opened the door to let him in. General Ji's 3 cars quickly drove into the base and headed towards the conference building. Deputy Chief of Staff Su quickly said to his wife, Let's get in the car and go in quickly. He had also come in his own car. Of course, his rank was not as high as General Ji's and Hua Xiaoheng's. There was only one driver in his car and he did not listen to his commands. He was temporarily seconded. Zhao Liangzi raised an eyebrow and stood at the entrance of the encampment with his hands clasped behind his back. He said to the Su couple, Please show your special pass, otherwise you will not be able to enter. Deputy Chief of Staff Su blushed and got out of the car. We're just here to see Miss Gu and apologize to her. Are you Major General Hua's personal secretary Zhao Liangzi? Zhao Liangzi looked at him with a faint smile and nodded. I am Zhao Liangzi. Please show your special pass and don't waste everyone's time. We're just here to visit the patient. Mrs. Su looked very surprised. Do we need a special pass for this? Of course I do. I'm very busy, I don't have time to waste. Zhao Liangzi glanced at his watch. Deputy Chief of Staff Su, your wife doesn't seem to understand the rules of the Special Operations Forces very well. Please explain it to her. I'll take my leave now. He turned and left. He got into a small car and drove to the encampment's conference room. Why are you leaving? I've never seen anything like this. They won't even let us in. What right do they have? We're just here to visit the patient. I don't believe they won't let us in. They're the ones being unreasonable no matter what we say. Deputy Chief of Staff Su's wife was infuriated by Zhao Liangzi's indifferent attitude and was about to barge in. That's enough. Deputy Chief of Staff Su grabbed his wife's hand and almost covered her mouth. This is the Special Operations Forces. Do you think you can barge into a place like this? What's wrong with barging in? I'm just here to visit the patient. I don't believe anyone will die if I go in. Mrs. Su was completely enraged. She had always only interacted with the wives of military officers who were of lower rank than her. Recently, she had become closer to General Ji's wife thanks to her daughter, Su Piaohong. Moreover, General Ji's wife was very polite and courteous to her, so she couldn't stand other people being rude to her. She pushed Deputy Chief of Staff Su away and walked in with her head held high. Bang bang. 2 gunshots rang out as 2 bullets landed not far from Mother Su's feet. A voice came out of nowhere and calmly said, "If you take another step forward, you'll be killed regardless." Mrs. Su was stunned for a full minute before she hugged her head and screamed. She was originally a soprano and this time she had never been so frightened in her life. Her voice was even more forceful, and her soprano voice soared. The birds in the forest were so frightened that they fluttered and circled around in the sky. Deputy Chief of Staff Su's face was red with embarrassment. He quickly pulled her into his car and ordered the driver, "Hurry up and drive away. Hurry up and drive away." The driver was a soldier and the disdain on his face was gone. He looked in the rearview mirror and drove away. Mrs. Su grabbed Deputy Chief of Staff Su's collar and trembled the whole way. She asked in a trembling voice, "Did they really shoot just now? How dare they? I'm your wife. You're the Deputy Chief of Staff. How dare they?" Deputy Chief of Staff Su could almost hear the soldier in front of him snickering. He had no choice but to explain to his wife. That's the Special Operations Forces. Their security level is very high and normal people really can't go in. I originally wanted to go in with General Ji, and they wouldn't dare stop us. I didn't expect Hua Xiaoheng to be so smart and immediately separate us from General Ji. You're saying that Major General Hua did it on purpose? Mrs. Su said angrily, but he can't just shoot like that. That doesn't make any sense, does it? If he really is such a rude person, I don't want to marry my daughter to him. Old Su, have a good talk with General Ji. With Hua Xiaoheng like this, our daughter. Shut up. Deputy Chief of Staff Su's face darkened. He lowered his voice and scolded his wife. Do you think your daughter is so popular? People are fighting for her? Don't mention this again. Do you think she still has a chance to marry someone like Major General Hua? What's wrong? Didn't we come to apologize? Besides, how can we change the decision of the organization? Mrs. Su was very confused. It's his problem if he doesn't accept it, not ours. That's enough. When did the organization really say anything about this? Don't use a chicken feather as a token of authority. Deputy Chief of Staff Su couldn't take it anymore. This matter ends here. Don't get involved anymore. Let's go home. Deputy Chief of Staff Su crossed his arms and closed his eyes, not saying another word. Although he was usually obedient to his wife and daughter, he was the one who handled all the important matters. As soon as he put on this expression, his wife didn't dare to say another word. She only muttered, "He actually didn't let us visit him. Who knows what's going on?" Deputy Chief of Staff Su couldn't be bothered with her. He secretly thought to himself that he would wait for General Ji to come back before he spoke again. The two of them didn't speak again on the way home. When they got home, Su Piaohong heard that they were back. She rushed downstairs and asked anxiously, "Have you seen Gunyanji? Is she pretending to be injured?" "Who knows if she's pretending? We didn't see her at all." Mrs. Su snorted. "I think you should just ignore her. We'll talk about it when you see her in a few days." Su Piaohong breathed a sigh of relief and patted her chest. That's good. I knew she was pretending." At that moment, General Ji had just sat down and had a sip of tea in the highest quality conference room of the Special Operations Forces headquarters. Hua Xiaoheng opened the door and entered. He saluted General Ji.
Good morning, Chief. Yes, come and sit. General G pointed to the seat in front of him. There's something I need to tell you. Be prepared. Hua Xiaoheng sat down calmly and looked at General G steadily. Is it about Su Piaohong's leak? Yes. General G sighed. Xiaoheng, it's been hard on you. Today, the Supreme Military Council had a special meeting on this matter. I made a self-reflection during the meeting. General G, this isn't your fault, Hua Xiaoheng said calmly as he took out a report. This is a summary of the reactions of the major intelligence agencies in the world over the past 2 days. Judging from the reactions from all sides, my identity has been exposed. I can no longer be the chief of the Special Operations Forces. This was the first watch. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. 7 p.m. the next watch. Chapter 426. So soon. Although he was mentally prepared, General G still couldn't believe it when the truth was right in front of him. He took the report and began to read it carefully. Hua Xiaoheng didn't make a sound. He poured himself a cup of tea and sipped it slowly, waiting for General G's reaction. After a long time, General G pinched the deep wrinkles between his brows. He said seriously, "This is a very serious matter. We've already considered this during the meeting today. But you can't just give up like this, right? You were the one who founded the Special Operations Forces. Are you willing to abandon it? Xiaoheng, you're already a major general. You can't throw a tantrum like normal people." General G, I'm telling the truth. I've never thought of giving up. Hua Xiaoheng smiled and shook his head. I'm used to thinking about the worst-case scenario and making all the arrangements. Then I'll see how the other party reacts and come up with a response. You're really not throwing a tantrum? General G rolled his eyes and looked at Hua Xiaoheng's expression through his reading glasses. What happened to Su Piaohong was my fault. I'll take the main responsibility. I've already reflected on my actions during the Supreme Council's regular meeting. I can even apologize to you personally. I really didn't. Hua Xiaoheng stood up. General G, we're talking about official matters. Although Su Piaohong's matter has caused a lot of trouble for my work, it's not your responsibility. I know what I'm doing. General G looked at Hua Xiaoheng emotionally and nodded. I'm already very relieved that you're not angry at me because of this. But what happened to the Su family was indeed my fault. I shouldn't have leaked this information to Su Piaohong without doing a thorough background check on her. Hua Xiaoheng remained silent and looked straight ahead. His expression was neither sad nor happy, so it was impossible to tell what he was thinking. General G continued, the organization is taking your marriage very seriously. They'll definitely be stricter in the future. You have to be mentally prepared. Hua Xiaoheng said calmly, I hope that the organization can consider the uniqueness of my work and let me choose a suitable wife. This was an expression of his distrust of General G and the rest of the organization. If he had said something like that before the Su Piaohong incident, General G would have definitely scolded him and told him to listen to them. The military would then pick the most suitable wife for him. However, since something like this had happened and caused serious consequences, he had no choice but to consider Hua Xiaoheng's suggestion. Do you have an idea? General G asked Hua Xiaoheng through his reading glasses. I'm telling you, you have to think twice before you act on some people. If you don't want to progress further, then make your own decision. General G, I don't think my personal problems will conflict with my career. Hua Xiaoheng knew that he couldn't produce any concrete evidence to convince General G, so he didn't continue. He naturally changed the topic and talked about work. He took a step back, picked up the remote control and dimmed the lights in the conference room. A huge screen appeared on the wall opposite them. Soon, the screen began to show the information about the intelligence agencies of various countries. Hua Xiaoheng sat beside General G and said calmly, the Special Operations Forces is a special organization within the special organizations of the military. The identities of the Special Operations Forces members have always been kept secret. It's even more secretive than the American CIA, British MI5, Israel's Mossad and Russia's Federal Security Service. It's never officially acknowledged by the country. General G nodded. But the country and its people haven't forgotten your contributions. For the sake of the country, our Special Operations Forces members are spread all over the world. We've made many achievements, but they're only recorded in the Military Supreme Council's Book of Achievements and displayed in the Special Operations Forces Hall of Fame. Yes, but because of Su Piaohong's recklessness, the cloak of an organization like this was practically ripped off. Hua Xiaoheng's voice was slightly agitated,
perfectly showing his anger. General Ji breathed a sigh of relief. This was the Hua Xiaoheng he knew. The Hua Xiaoheng who was too calm and cool was really hard to get used to. He understood Hua Xiaoheng's feelings very well. The identity of the most mysterious leader of the Special Operations Forces had been revealed in front of everyone just like that. Many years of hard work had been for nothing, and no one could face it calmly. Xiaoheng, I know, but you can't resign and you can't leave the Special Operations Forces. General Ji patted the back of his hand. I only trust you. The entire Military Supreme Council had a special meeting today to discuss this, and everyone only trusts you. The Special Operations Forces was too important. It required a lot of technical skills, and the ability of the commanding personnel was very high. Up until now, Hua Xiaoheng was the only person who had the ability to match the scope of the Special Operations Forces authority. At the same time, his personal character was also trusted by the Military Supreme Council. Moreover, because he was still young, not even 30 years old, the military's higher-ups had never thought of finding someone else to replace him immediately. They all thought that Hua Xiaoheng would personally groom his successor in the Special Operations Forces. Who knew that Su Piaohong's rash actions not only put Hua Xiaoheng in a difficult position, but also disrupted the Military Supreme Council's pace. It was not that they weren't angry. General Ji, who was in the eye of the storm, was also the target of everyone's attention, and his days were not going to be easy. Fortunately, Hua Xiaoheng was personally groomed by him, and his feelings for him were deeper than anyone else's. General Ji would never allow Hua Xiaoheng to resign. General Ji, I don't need to elaborate on the severity of this matter. They may not be completely sure of my true identity. Hua Xiaoheng calmly pointed at the intelligence agencies on the screen. But it's impossible for them not to confirm such a big lead. So I can show General Ji what they're going to do next. Hua Xiaoheng picked up the remote control again, and changed to another video to show General Ji. If I were them and wanted to use this video as a lead to find the leader of the Special Operations Forces, this is what I would do. Hua Xiaoheng raised his hand and pressed a few buttons, and a few options appeared on the screen. First, find someone to get close to Su Piaohong, and get the most detailed first-hand information from her. Anyone who has watched the video will be able to do it. Hua Xiaoheng said calmly without any expression on his face, as if he was talking about a trivial matter. In other words, he was implying that Su Piaohong had no sense of confidentiality, that she was stupid, and that it was easier to get information out of her. The corner of General Ji's mouth twitched. He glanced at Hua Xiaoheng and thought to himself that his heart had softened with age. When he heard about Hua Xiaoheng's punishment for Su Piaohong, his heart wrenched. Hua Xiaoheng nodded at General Ji. Second, find someone to infiltrate the Special Operations Forces. I can't say that we don't have people from other countries here, but I can guarantee that foreign spies won't be able to infiltrate the important departments under strict control. General Ji clenched his fists and frowned. Really? That's terrible. He waved his hand at Hua Xiaoheng. Stop for a moment. I'll have someone take care of something. Hua Xiaoheng pressed the pause button, and the lights in the conference room came back on. General Ji took out his phone to make a call but realized there was no signal. He couldn't help but glance at Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng smiled. General Ji, did you forget? The year before last, the military decided to store all cell phones during meetings. They can't be carried around. I didn't forget. But are we in a meeting? General Ji laughed. Forget it, I'm just asking for it. Do you have an internal line here? Cell phones couldn't be used, but the landline could. Yes, this way. Hua Xiaoheng passed the landline to General Ji. General Ji dialed his own number and told his personal secretary in front of Hua Xiaoheng, get someone to apply for an arrest warrant. Su Piaohong needs to be arrested immediately and locked up in solitary confinement. Before this matter is resolved, no one is allowed to visit her. Also, Deputy Chief of Staff Su and his wife need to be placed under house arrest as well. Don't take them away, just keep them in their homes. Anyone who wants to come into contact with the Su couple is to be brought to the Special Operations Forces. After hanging up, General Ji turned to Hua Xiaoheng. The Su family has been dealt with. Su Piaohong has been arrested according to the law and her parents have been placed under house arrest. When you're done here, you can start the trial on Su Piaohong's case of leaking classified information. Also, Deputy Chief of Staff Su needs to transfer back to his post. Hua Xiaoheng didn't reply. The personnel transfer in the military wasn't within his jurisdiction. He had no right to interfere and didn't want to say anything. Also, General Ji turned to look at him and smiled. The Army Supreme Council has decided to promote you to Deputy Secretary General of the Standing Committee of the Army Supreme Council. That means you'll be my rightful deputy. This position had always been reserved for the chairman of the Army Supreme Council. For example, General G had been promoted from this position many years ago. Wu Xiaoheng was slightly taken aback. He didn't expect General G to promote him. Your position as the head of the Special Operations Forces will be announced to the public soon, General G said unexpectedly. But that's just a facade. It's for outsiders to see. In reality, you'll still be the head of the Special Operations Forces. You'll still be here. It was the second watch, asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Chapter 427. So, this was a covert plan? Or could it be that the real was illusory and the illusory was real? This was turning him into a covert operation again. Wu Xiaoheng frowned slightly. I don't understand. What rules does the military have? It's like this. The military has discussed this for a long time. The Special Operations Forces is too important. Although other countries might know about your identity, they probably won't expect us to play along with them. General G said with a smile as he gently tapped his fingers on the oval conference table. Now that you've been publicly dismissed, those people won't focus on you anymore. At the same time, we'll release a few suitable candidates. Of course, it'll be in the form of a secret discussion, but you also know that people hate the word secret the most. They'll do everything they can to find that secret, and you'll be able to stay out of it. That works too. Wu Xiaoheng tilted his head. But we have to plan this carefully. Otherwise, we won't be able to hide it from those old foxes, the CIA and Mossad. Israel's Mossad had done this a long time ago. Wu Xiaoheng's master in Mossad was an expert in this kind of covert operation. Of course. We definitely can't decide such an important matter with just one sentence. But you said that other countries also know about this method? What should we do? General G was also in a difficult position. He wasn't an intelligence officer and he was used to doing things openly. He knew about the people and things that were guarding in the dark, but he didn't understand them. Wu Xiaoheng looked at General G and bowed slightly. If General G doesn't mind, I have an idea. What idea? General G hurried him. Hurry up and tell me. I can do both, but I want complete autonomy over personnel. Whether it's soldiers on missions or civilian staff, everyone who wants to enter the Special Operations Forces must be nominated by the Special Operations Forces and submitted to the Supreme Military Council for approval. If we don't nominate anyone, outsiders can't bring up the matter of being transferred to the Special Operations Forces. Wu Xiaoheng's voice deepened. This request was obviously targeted at Su Piaohong, and it wasn't just Su Piaohong. The personnel relations in the Special Forces were very complicated, and Wu Xiaoheng could only manage the Special Forces soldiers on missions. Many other departments in the military could interfere with the civilian staff. For example, most of the people in the legal department were the eyes and ears of the various military organizations in the Special Operations Forces, including the head of the legal department, Bai Yueran. How could she not be General G's eyes and ears? However, this kind of thing could only be done and not said. It was fine as long as everyone was aware of it. In the past, Wu Xiaoheng didn't care that these people were in the Special Operations Forces. After all, the most confidential information wasn't accessible to these civilian staff. But now, he realized that although these people didn't have access to the most confidential information, a small leak could lead to unexpected consequences. Since the headquarters of the Special Operations Forces had moved to the imperial capital, more and more people were trying to get their hands dirty. Who was Su Piaohong? She was just the daughter of the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Operations Department of some military region, and that Deputy Chief of Staff was only a regimental officer. How could he have the ability to transfer his daughter from the police department to the Special Operations Forces, a national organization with the highest level of security? There must be someone working behind the scenes, and this person's rank was not low at all. Of course, Wu Xiaoheng also knew that this person was definitely not General G. Otherwise, he wouldn't have put in so many good words for Su Piaohong. General G was obviously being used as a target to divert attention. Looking at General G's increasingly serious expression, Wu Xiaoheng took a sip of tea and said, for example, the transfer of personnel in the legal department of the Special Operations Forces is directly handled by the military. General G, you have to think carefully. What kind of people are there? Otherwise, why would you let Bai Yueran be the head of the legal department? Now, with Su Piaohong's incident with her father's ability, Do you think he has the ability to transfer his daughter from the police department to the Special Operations Forces just like that? Bai Yueran was also someone General Ji trusted, which was why she was sent to lead the legal department. General Ji was no fool, of course, given that he was in this position. It only took a moment for him to realize that he had been used as a cover. He suddenly felt suffocated. If it weren't for the fact that he had cultivated himself over the years and didn't have the fiery temper he used to have, he might have rushed out with a gun and shot that person. This is ridiculous. I'm really old and muddle-headed. I've been trying to kill the goose, but in the end the goose pecked my eye. General Ji slammed the table in anger. If I find out who's behind this, I'll shoot him. Old Ji, please calm down, Old Ji. Huo Xiaoheng had a faint smile on his face as he poured General Ji a cup of tea. Have some tea to calm your anger. General Ji suppressed his anger and took a sip of tea. The faint scent of sandalwood gradually soothed his nervous and angry emotions. Huo Xiaoheng didn't say anything and waited quietly for General Ji to calm down. After a long while, General Ji closed his eyes and sighed deeply. He nodded slightly and said, Xiaoheng, since you're being honest today, I'll be honest with you. Do you know why I was so anxious to introduce a wife to you? He opened his eyes and stared at Huo Xiaoheng without moving. He didn't even blink. Huo Xiaoheng grunted and nodded. I guessed a little. Yes, it's because of that girl Gunyanji. General Ji touched the few remaining strands of hair on his head. I can tell that you treat her differently, but her background is unknown. She can't pass the background check, and the organization can't agree to her marrying you. Also, General Ji paused and glanced at Huo Xiaoheng again. He looked away and said awkwardly, she grew up with you. If something happened between you and her, do you know what people would say about you? Do you still care about your personal morals? If he wanted to rise, personal morals were a very important indicator. Otherwise his career would stop here. Huo Xiaoheng said calmly, I don't think my personal morals have anything to do with this. I don't have a wife or a girlfriend. She doesn't have a husband or a boyfriend. If we get together in the future, it'll be a natural thing. It doesn't violate any moral rules. If people make irresponsible remarks because of this, I'll also speak the truth. He looked at General Ji and said slowly, it's none of their business. If they don't agree, they can die. General Ji spat out a mouthful of tea and splattered the oval conference table. He quickly wiped it with a napkin on the table and laughed until he couldn't breathe. He pointed at Huo Xiaoheng for a long time before saying, Oh, you were acting like a gentleman just now, and now you're doing this again. I thought you were different from those ruffian soldiers, but now it looks like there's no difference. The corners of Huo Xiaoheng's lips curled up. There was a faint smile in his eyes and his voice was still steady and deep. He said very sincerely, So, Old Ji, don't worry. I won't do anything that the organization can't pass. As for Gunyanji, she's already an adult, so you can let her choose for herself. We've been investigating her background, and I'll tell Old Ji that there's been a major breakthrough recently. It'll be soon. Oh, are you serious? General Ji was stunned by the news. He grabbed Huo Xiaoheng's hand and asked anxiously, Is it true? Is it true? Is it true? Huo Xiaoheng nodded. I usually don't say things that I'm not 100% sure of. Now that you're forcing me, Old Ji, I'm only letting it out. Then can her family background pass the background check? General Ji had wasted all his years as a general if he still didn't understand what Huo Xiaoheng meant. He didn't have any other requests now. As long as Gunyanji's family background was clean and could be investigated, then there wouldn't be any problems. If our direction is correct, her family background is clean, and her father may have made great contributions to our country, so you don't have to worry. Huo Xiaoheng finally broke his own rule and revealed a piece of unconfirmed news. Thinking about it carefully, the only 3 exceptions he had made in his life seemed to be related to Gunyanji. Huo Xiaoheng tilted his head slightly and put aside the fleeting thought in his mind. He focused on General Ji and waited for his reply. That's great. General Ji patted Huo Xiaoheng's shoulder. The engine blueprints she brought back that time were already very beneficial to us. Looks like she's really from a scholarly family. I think she's just like your grandfather's family. You guys are a good match. Ah. General Ji's thoughts turned quickly. In the blink of an eye, he went from opposing to supporting. Huo Xiaoheng smiled slightly. He knew that General Ji was also making up for the troubles and losses caused by Su Piaohong. That was why he was exaggerating. He didn't take it to heart and emphasized to General Ji again, I want the Special Operations Forces to have full autonomy over personnel. This power belongs to the commander of the Special Operations Forces. If I don't do it, someone else will have full autonomy over personnel. This kind of organization shouldn't be a vegetable garden where anyone could come and go as they pleased. This was the first night watch. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Especially recommendation votes. Recommendation votes on Monday were very important. Thank you for subscribing, voting, and tipping. 7 p.m. the second night watch. Chapter 428. General G listened for a long time without making a sound. Personnel authority was the most sensitive and important authority within the organization. In his position, he not only had to consider how to delegate it, but also whether it could be taken back in the future. But according to Hua Xiaoheng, this authority would forever remain within the Special Operations Forces, especially in the hands of the head of the Special Operations Forces. This wasn't an easy thing to do. General G said slowly, I can't make the decision on this matter. You also know that power is about checks and balances. If you have such absolute authority over personnel appointments, it's very easy to create an imbalance. Hua Xiaoheng had already expected General G to say this. He smiled and proposed a solution. Actually, it's very simple to balance things out. My position as the head of the Special Operations Forces was appointed by the Supreme Military Council, and only by the Supreme Military Council. Isn't this the end of it? You have absolute personnel authority over me, and I have absolute personnel authority over the organizations under my jurisdiction. We have clear targets of authority and responsibility. For a secret organization, this is the safest way. General G was tempted. Yes, your appointment can indeed be executed by the Supreme Military Council. That's not bad, very good. I'll go back and discuss it with them. They should be able to accept this result. Of course they would. Hua Xiaoheng was very clear about the minds of the Supreme Military Council's big shots. They were all a group of people with a strong desire to control everything and everyone in the palm of their hands. Of course, their general direction was still for the benefit of the nation, so it wasn't a bad thing to have a strong desire for control. Hua Xiaoheng gave them a chance to have absolute control over him, and he had to write this opportunity into official rules and regulations. These big shots would definitely be at ease, and they wouldn't be afraid that Hua Xiaoheng would treat the Special Operations Forces as his own just because he had complete personnel authority. After discussing business, General G finally asked about Gunyanji. I heard she sprained her ankle and injured her spine? Is it serious? General G stood up and walked out of the conference room with Hua Xiaoheng. I want to see her. Is that okay? General G said he wanted to see Gunyanji, and he used such a humble tone. Of course, Hua Xiaoheng couldn't say no. He nodded and led General G downstairs to his official residence. He waved as he said, last night was the most dangerous. She had a fever all night, but Qinlai was there the whole time to set her bones. The fever only subsided this morning, but she still can't get up. She might have to stay in bed for a while. Is that serious? It's not good to hurt your spine at such a young age. General G didn't ask any more questions when he heard it was Qinlai's diagnosis. Hua Xiaoheng wasn't afraid of them checking. After all, the two orthopedic surgeons who had set Gunyanji's bones back together had provided circumstantial evidence. The X-ray and MRI results from that time were all there. None of them were fake. Of course, only the result was fishy. Other than Hua Xiaoheng and Qinlai, no one else would be able to see through it. They wouldn't even be able to guess it. Therefore, Hua Xiaoheng calmly brought General G to visit Gunyanji. Gunyanji received the news in advance and was already lying in bed. Her back was actually fine, but because of the unusually high fever, her whole body was sore, as if her spine was injured and she couldn't move. Hello, Chief. Hello, Chief. Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi loudly saluted General G at the door of Gunyanji's suite. This was also a reminder to Gunyanji. Gunyanji quickly straightened up. She was a little nervous and tiny beads of sweat appeared on the tip of her nose. Her little face was slightly red, but it looked more like the embers of a high fever. General G entered Gunyanji's suite with Hua Xiaoheng's two personal secretaries following behind. They were actually his personal bodyguards. Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang stood at the door and didn't enter. When they reached Gunyanji's bedroom, Hua Xiaoheng looked at General G's two personal secretaries and said calmly, "Would you two like to wait at the door? It's a young lady's bedroom. It's not very appropriate for so many grown men to go in together." General G nodded and said to his two personal secretaries, "You two wait at the door. I'll go in and have a few words with Nianji before I come out." "Yes, Chief." The two personal secretaries quickly agreed. Hua Xiaoheng turned around and knocked on the door. He said in a low voice, "Nianji?" General Ji is here to see you. We're coming in. Gu Nianji didn't make a sound and stared at the door. After a while, the bedroom door opened with a creak, and Hua Xiaoheng's tall figure appeared in front of her. Gu Nianji's face was even redder, and even the rims of her eyes were tinted with a faint blush. Her face was like cherry blossoms blowing against the snow, and she looked even more delicate than her usual lively self. Hua Xiaoheng felt his heart heat up when he glanced at her. He quickly looked down and didn't dare to look again. He moved to the side and said, "General Ji, this way." General Ji walked in, and Hua Xiaoheng closed the door behind him to block the prying eyes of the two personal secretaries. Gu Nianji was very embarrassed. She had never been like this before. General Ji was a very kind person. He walked over and bent over to Gu Nianji, who was lying motionless on the bed. "Nianji, do you still remember me?" Gu Nianji blinked to show that she remembered and whispered, "You're General Ji?" "Yes, you can just call me Uncle Ji," General Ji said gently. "I heard you sprained your ankle and injured your spine. I'm here on behalf of the Supreme Military Council to see you. I hope you can recover soon." Gu Nianji's face was red and her eyes were misty. She looked like she was about to cry. Thank you, General Ji. I really don't deserve it." General Ji thought Gu Nianji's touched expression was very cute, and his heart skipped a beat. He wanted to get information from her. What's there to not deserve? You took down our most powerful Major General Hua, and you're saying you don't deserve it? Gu Nianji was speechless. Oh my, what was going on? She looked at General Ji with a confused expression. She looked at General Ji, then at Hua Xiaoheng and asked in confusion, "Uncle Ji, what are you talking about? Hua Xiao is so powerful. I can't beat him, so how can I take him down?" "Ah, you're such an interesting girl." General Ji stood up and laughed. "You really can't beat Xiaoheng. If you can beat him, you're not human, you're Superman." Gu Nianji smiled. "Superman is a man. I'm a woman. I'm not Superman." Yes. Our Nianji is the best." General Ji praised her with a smile. "Smart, quick-witted, and adaptable. You grew up with Xiaoheng, so you understand a lot of things without saying." As General Ji spoke, he patted Hua Xiaoheng's shoulder. He didn't say anything. Hua Xiaoheng stood beside General Ji and didn't say anything. There was a faint smile on his lips as he watched General Ji talk to Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji didn't say much before showing a tired expression. She sighed deeply. General Ji immediately said, "Are you tired? I just wanted to see you. Sai, you're still young. Nothing must happen to your spine." As he spoke, he ordered Hua Xiaoheng, "You must find the best doctor to treat Nianji's injury." Hua Xiaoheng nodded calmly. "With Chen Lai around, I don't have to worry. Chen Lai is a national champion, but does he know orthopedics?" General Ji was a bit hesitant when he thought about it. Hua Xiaoheng didn't let General Ji lead him astray. Instead, he reached out to turn off the bedroom lights and said to Gu Nianji, "We're leaving. Go to sleep. Press the bell if you need anything. There's someone waiting outside." As soon as the bedroom lights were turned off, it was dark even in broad daylight. Gu Nianji watched Hua Xiaoheng turn and leave in the dark. She was reluctant to part with him and hoped that he would turn around to look at her. However, Hua Xiaoheng didn't turn around and left with General Ji. The sound of the door slamming came from outside. Gu Nianji knew they had gone out. Not long after, Yin Shixiang poked his head in with a smile. "Nianji, what do you want to eat? I'll get someone to prepare it for you." Gu Nianji was a bit depressed. She shook her head and said, "No need. I want to sleep." "Okay, you sleep first. You can eat with Hua Xiao when he comes back tonight." Yin Shixiang could see that Gu Nianji wasn't in a good mood. He thought it might be because of her pain and sympathized with her. Seeing that she had closed her eyes to sleep, Yin Shixiang carefully closed the door and left. When she reached the hallway, she heard Zhao Liangzi call Hua Xiaoheng. "Hua Xiao." Professor, he couldn't get through to Nianji's phone, so he was getting anxious. "What do you think?" On the other end of the line, Hua Xiaoheng said expressionlessly through the Bluetooth headset, "Have Nianji call Professor He and tell him she's injured. Also ask for a week's leave." Gu Nianji had just closed her eyes when Zhao Liangzi rushed into the bedroom and woke her up. Nianji, can you talk to Professor He?" Gu Nianji finally remembered that she had promised He Jichu. She couldn't help but feel a headache coming on, but she had no choice. After all, she was the one who broke her promise first. Also, He Jichu was too powerful. Although Gu Nianji could keep her distance from him, she didn't want to completely fall out with him. Her intuition told her that if they had a falling out, Hua Xiaoheng would be the one to suffer. "Brother Zhe, give me the phone. I'll video call Professor He." After Zhao Liangzi left, Gunyanji looked at her black t-shirt and pajamas. She got up from the bed and put on a coral pink Egyptian cotton pajama. She went back to bed and raised her phone to call Hijichu. This is the second watch. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Especially recommendation votes. Recommendation votes on Monday are very important. Thank you all for subscribing, voting and tipping. Mwah. Chapter 429. Hijichu's phone quickly connected, but Gunyanji didn't know where he was. She could even hear the wind whistling in her ears. Hijichu's cold voice seemed to come from a faraway place. It was like an icicle on a cold night, with a piercing warmth. Gunyanji, have you forgotten everything you promised me? Professor. Professor He. Gunyanji felt uncomfortable after being scolded by Hijichu. I have a reason. What kind of reason? You better tell me now. I'm about to arrive at the Special Operations Forces headquarters. I'll wait at the door to see when you'll come out. Hijichu's voice was squeezed out through clenched teeth. Gunyanji could even imagine his extreme rage, the veins on his forehead bulging. What? You're on your way. Gunyanji sat up in shock. You're coming to the Special Operations Forces headquarters? Can't I? Since you didn't call or give me any information, I had no choice but to come see you in person. Hijichu didn't want to talk about how he had endured the past 2 days. He only had one thought now, and that was to see Gunyanji with his own eyes. Otherwise he wouldn't be able to relax. Professor He, where are you? Gunyanji paused and naturally used her negotiation skills to change the subject. Is it inconvenient for you to talk outside? It's convenient for me to talk. I can talk to you at any time. Hijichu closed his eyes and gripped the steering wheel tightly as he sped towards the Special Operations Forces headquarters. His expression was grim and his eyes were filled with anger. He was like a barrel of gunpowder that was about to explode. Gunyanji choked and smiled sheepishly. Professor He, don't be like this. You really scared me. Hearing her voice, Hijichu's anxious heart finally calmed down after 2 days. He had vented most of his anger after yelling just now. The only thing he was worried about was Gunyanji's health. That's enough to scare you? You don't seem that timid. Hijichu snorted and slammed on the brakes to slow down the speeding car. Professor He, I'm fine. I'm really fine. Gunyanji panicked and opened the FaceTime video on her phone. Professor He, look, I'm perfectly fine. It was my fault yesterday. I promised to call you but I forgot. Gunyanji felt a little guilty and tried to smile at the camera. Hijichu held the steering wheel with one hand and accepted the call with the other. He saw Gunyanji's face appear on the phone screen. Hijichu scanned Gunyanji's surroundings and frowned. You're on the bed? Gunyanji sat on the bed and raised the phone to face herself. She smiled and said, as you can see, I did have a reason. I injured my spine and I just had surgery yesterday. I've been unconscious since then. I just woke up today but I still can't move. Hijichu looked at her silently for a while before saying slowly, Really? He really couldn't get up. Why do I remember that you injured your foot? Gunyanji was about to smile and say, of course it's the feet and also the back, when she suddenly remembered what Hijichu had said to her the other day before she had the x-ray. It's best to have your ligaments checked. If there's a problem with the ligaments, it needs to be treated immediately. Otherwise it won't recover. Qinlai also said calmly to her, Nyenji, did you injure the ligaments in your ankle before? It shows that your ankle ligaments do have traces of old injuries. Gunyanji finally found the direction and answer to the strange feeling she'd been having for the past 2 days. She blurted out, Professor He, how did you know that my ankle ligaments have old injuries? Hijichu didn't answer directly. He looked at her again and ended the video call. He put on his Bluetooth headset and asked her coldly as he drove, Is your back really injured? Gunyanji blinked and realized that Hijichu had avoided her question. She looked at the black screen in her hand and pouted. Of course it's true. How could it be fake? I couldn't get out of bed because of the pain. If I hadn't discovered it in time, I might have been paralyzed in bed for the rest of my life. Hijichu snorted and said dryly, You? Paralyzed in bed? That's the biggest joke in the world. Gunyanji felt even more strange. Why can't I be paralyzed in bed? It's human nature to grow old and die of illness. I accidentally hit my back and injured my spine. If it weren't for the doctor's brilliant medical skills, I really wouldn't have been able to get out of bed. She paused and continued in a fawning tone, But I'm fine now. Professor He, you can go back. I'm really fine. But She remembered that Hua Xiaoheng wanted her to take 2 more weeks of leave and couldn't help but sigh. What should she do? She was stuck in a loop of logic. If she insisted that she was fine, then she had no reason to ask for 2 weeks of sick leave. But if she said that her injury was serious and she needed to rest for 2 weeks, then He Jichu wouldn't give up. He would definitely come to the Special Operations Forces headquarters to see her. She also knew that He Jichu would never be able to enter. So they were going to leave him alone outside? That didn't seem very appropriate. After all, he was her instructor. They still had 2.5 years to go. What should she do? But what? He Jichu pressed her. What else are you hesitating about? I'm only here to check on your injury. There's nothing else. Professor He, you can't enter this place. Gun Yinji gritted her teeth. I'd better get up to see you. Can you stop 100 yards from the main entrance and tell me the license plate number? I'll come out to see you myself, okay? He Jichu was silent. He thought about it for a while and turned the steering wheel with a squeak. He drove to the shoulder of the road and stopped. It would be much easier to make a video call. Gun Yinji, tell me the truth. Is your spine really injured? He Jichu stared at the phone screen. He wished his eyes were X-rays and could see through Gun Yinji's heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys to see the condition of her bones. It's true. Gun Yinji nodded very sincerely. I have X-rays. If you want to see them, I'll take a picture when you get back and send it to your phone. Is that okay? But you're fine now, right? He Jichu confirmed it again. On the phone screen, Gun Yinji had red lips and white teeth. Under the light, her skin was snow-white and delicate. Even with a magnifying glass, he couldn't see any flaws. It was like a kind of kiln-made cherry powder porcelain from his hometown. It had a more translucent pink texture than white jade. Usually, only the most meticulously cared for babies would have such delicate, flawless, snow-white skin. People with this kind of skin color shouldn't be seriously injured to the point of not being able to get out of bed. I'm really fine now. As Gun Yinji spoke, she raised the phone and got out of bed. She walked around the bedroom a few times. Look, aren't I very normal? And my ankle? As Gun Yinji spoke, she swept her feet side by side for He Jichu to see. She said proudly, can you see which foot is dislocated? It was swollen yesterday, but it's fine today. He Jichu's phone screen showed a pair of similarly pink feet. Her toes were round and plump, like an enlarged baby's foot. It made people want to take a bite. He Jichu looked away and breathed a sigh of relief uncomfortably. Your left foot is recovering well. Remember to watch where you're going next time. Don't walk backwards. You don't have eyes on your back, so you'll end up like this if you hit it. Gun Yinji giggled. I know, Professor He. You're so good to me. It's my blessing to have a mentor like you. Thank you. She became more polite to He Jichu. She thanked him left and right, and the distance between them grew wider and wider. He Jichu said indifferently, you're welcome. You can rest for 2 weeks and come back to school after that. Gun Yinji was overjoyed. She didn't expect He Jichu to relent so easily. She felt that she had gone too far. She quickly said, Professor He, thank you so much. You don't know how important these 2 weeks are to me. He Jichu's fingers tapped lightly on the steering wheel. His eyes were cold as he said dryly, but you have to promise me one thing. Gun Yinji asked, what thing? She was celebrating too early. How could He Jichu be so easily dismissed? I have a document. I'll send it to you first. Sign it and fax it to me. He Jichu said as he sent the power of attorney to Gun Yinji's email. Gun Yinji opened the email on her phone and quickly glanced at the power of attorney. She froze. It turned out to be a legal power of attorney. He Jichu wanted to be her full legal representative. He had the right to help her sue others. Of course, when others sued her, He Jichu would also be her lawyer. This was the first night watch. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. 7 o'clock the next night. P.S. It's the end of the year. I'm very busy. I can only try to guarantee 2 nights. Oh, intersection. Oh, wax. Chapter 430. Gun Yinji looked at the letter of authorization and thought about it for a long time. She paced around the room with her phone in hand before returning to the bed. Leaning against the pillow, she said to He Jichu in a roundabout way, Professor He, I don't need a legal representative at the moment. You know that I'm a law student. Although you're a lawyer and a law PhD, many people can't even dream of having you as their legal representative. But you don't want to? He Jichu cut her off, his expression growing paler. He looked out the window at the rolling traffic, then up at the clear blue sky. Pigeon whistles sounded in the air, and a flock of white pigeons fluttered into the sky. Everything was so perfect, except that she wasn't by his side. Gu Nianji hesitated as she thought about how to convince Hijichu. She didn't want to sign such an agreement, but she also didn't want to reject him so rudely like before. Growing up was learning to hide one's emotions. Gu Nianji felt like she was already an adult and couldn't act like a child and vent her emotions without restraint. Hijichu waited for a while and saw that Gu Nianji wasn't saying anything. He thought he understood what she meant. He silently turned off his phone and ended the call. He sat alone in the car, his expression as indifferent as a statue. Although he was extremely beautiful, he was lifeless. He sat alone in the car for a very, very long time. Beside him were the rolling traffic on the highway, and he sat there alone, like a passerby in this boundless mortal world. So much bustling and bustling past him, but not an inch of it belonged to him. What once belonged to him couldn't be kept, no matter what he did. Finally, he leaned against the steering wheel and buried his head in his arms, unmoving. After an unknown amount of time, a police car stopped behind his car. A traffic policeman walked over and knocked on his window. "Sir, are you all right?" Hijichu was driving the extremely flashy Maserati. When the policeman saw the car, he knew the person inside was either rich or of high status, so he was very careful not to get into trouble. Hijichu slowly straightened up from the steering wheel and turned to look at the policeman. He shook his head indifferently. "I'm a bit tired, so I'm going to rest by the side of the road. I'm leaving now." He started the car as he spoke. The traffic policeman quickly said, "If you're tired, find a hotel to rest. Don't drive when you're tired." Hijichu's eyes were dark, and his face was frighteningly pale. His eyes were bloodshot, and it was obvious that he had stayed up all night and lacked sleep. The traffic policeman was a little worried about his safety, so he drove the police car behind his car at a moderate pace. He followed him all the way to the south gate of B University before turning around and going back. When Hijichu returned to campus, the first thing he did was to post on the official website of the Faculty of Law that the recruitment test for teaching assistants would be delayed. He said that due to personal reasons he had to go back to the United States and would be back in 2 weeks. Hijichu left as soon as he said he would. He only took his passport and wallet with him. He didn't bring anything else with him as he boarded the next direct flight to New York. The news of him leaving the country quickly reached Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng didn't speak for a long time as he read Zhao Liang's report. Yin Shixiang crossed his legs and leaned against the back of the sofa. He laughed carelessly. This professor, he is quite tactful. Not only did he approve Nianji's leave, but he also found an excuse to go back to the United States. That way no one will notice Nianji's absence. Zhao Yangzi laughed and kicked Yin Shixiang. Not only is he tactful, he's also very considerate and considerate. To be honest, Professor, he treats Nianji only slightly less than Hua Xiao treats Nianji. He treats her much better than everyone else. Yin Shixiang chuckled, his eyebrows moving up and down. That makes sense. One is a professor and the other is a guardian. They're both seniors and they love their juniors the same. Zhao Yangzi smiled sheepishly as he hid behind Yin Shixiang. He didn't want to meet Hua Xiaoheng's gaze. However, Hua Xiaoheng ignored the 2 personal secretaries. He raised his hand to signal them to leave. He sat alone in his office, staring at the computer. It looked like he was working, but only he knew that he wasn't paying attention to anything on the computer. His thoughts were completely occupied by Hijichu's strange feelings for Gu Nianji. Why did Hijichu care so much about Gu Nianji? Was his concern for Gu Nianji already detached from the concern a professor would have for his student? When did this start? Was it during the 6 months of her internship at the U.S. Congress, or even earlier? Hua Xiaoheng was deep in thought. Something flashed through his mind, but when he wanted to grasp it, it disappeared without a trace. He stood up and crossed his arms as he paced around the office. He thought about everything about Hijichu, but he still couldn't figure out the relationship between them. He called Zhao Liangzi over the internal line. "Hua Xiao, what's up?" "Little Zhe, I asked you to investigate Hijichu and Wenshui again last time. Did you find anything?" Hua Xiaoheng stood by the window and asked without turning his head. Zhao Liangzi nodded and placed a file in front of Hua Xiaoheng. "I checked it again and it's the same as before. But now that I'm looking at it from the beginning, some of the timing is quite interesting." Hua Xiaoheng opened the file and read it himself as he listened to Zhao Liangzi's narration. This information shows that the He's are the richest family in South America. Their family assets span across several South American countries. Hijichu and Wenshui have citizenship in Argentina, Brazil, England, and the United States. He Zhichu himself has a great influence in the US political and military circles. Hua Xiaoheng flicked the file thoughtfully. This last point wasn't in the previous information. Yes, I added He Zhichu's influence in the US political and military circles. Zhao Yangzi said seriously, if it weren't for Nianji, we wouldn't have seen He Zhichu's ability in this area. He was referring to the conflict between Gu Nianji and Xian Xinggao in the United States, and the accident in the Caribbean Sea. He Zhichu was in a completely dominant position in these two incidents. He demonstrated his great power and helped Gu Nianji overcome the difficulties. Hua Xiaoheng looked down at the file and continued, the He's had always kept a low profile in South America. But 7 years ago He Zhichu suddenly became a partner of the largest law firm in the United States. That was when the He's power finally surfaced. Yes, and then 3 years ago He Zhichu entered Harvard Law School in the United States to teach. He started as an associate professor and became a tenured professor in just 2 years. At the same time he had the qualifications to accept doctoral students. Last year he accepted the offer from the B University Law School and came to B University as an adjunct professor. Zhao Yangzi walked to Hua Xiaoheng's desk and placed both hands on it. He leaned forward and lowered his voice. Hua Xiao, look at this. The year He Zhichu entered Harvard Law School in the United States was the year Nianji started her undergraduate law studies at C University. Hua Xiaoheng nodded slowly, his eyes dark and bottomless. He pointed at the time on the file and continued, also look at this. Nianji graduated last year and He Zhichu suddenly decided to accept a master's student. The B University Law School is much better than C University, but he didn't accept at B University. Instead he came to C University to interview Nianji. Yes. Zhao Yangzi clenched his fists. His eyes sparkled as he said excitedly, that time Nianji seemed to have fallen ill and missed the interview. I remember Big Xiong went to school to ask for a leave of absence for Nianji and said that He Zhichu's attitude was very bad. Big Xiong even grumbled for a long time and said what was so good about this kind of professor? It's better if Nianji doesn't get in. Hua Xiaoheng looked down uncomfortably at the mention of Gu Nianji's illness. He didn't meet Zhao Yangzi's eyes. He covered his mouth with one hand and coughed softly. Basically, we can conclude that He Zhichu did everything because of Nianji. Zhao Yangzi nodded fiercely. That's right. He leaned forward even more excitedly. Hua Xiao, do you think He Zhichu knew Nianji in the past? If that was the case, then Gu Nianji's background would soon be revealed. The truth they had been pursuing for 6 or 7 years was about to be revealed. Zhao Yangzi couldn't contain his excitement. Hua Xiaoheng didn't speak for a long time. It was so long that Zhao Yangzi thought Hua Xiaoheng would reject his opinion. Hua Xiaoheng finally said, that's a possibility, but there's another possibility. What possibility? That he intentionally tried to get close to Gu Nianji. Actually, he's no different from the people in the CIA, Britain's MI5, and Israel's Mossad. Oh? You're saying that He Zhichu could be a special agent for these countries? Zhao Yangzi was shocked by the news and his whole body wilted like a frosted eggplant. However, he had been following this matter for a long time. After being shocked by Hua Xiaoheng, he quickly recovered and shook his head. No, he can't be an intelligence agent for these countries. They can't afford to hire him. He's like the underground godfather of South America. Every presidential candidate there needs the approval of the He family before they can run. Therefore, the intelligence agencies of those countries should be used by He Zhichu, not the other way around. It was the second watch. Asking for monthly and recommendation votes. Oh, intersection. Oh. Chapter 431. The Underground Godfather of South America? When did this happen? Hua Xiaoheng narrowed his eyes. His sharp eyes were as black as ink, so deep that it was impossible to see through them. He knew about the power of the families and tycoons all over the world. If the He family really had such power in South America, it was impossible for Hua Xiaoheng not to know because this was one of his main jobs. Zhao Yangzi flipped through the file for a while and said, it should have happened in the last few years. It is said that the He family has always been very low-key, but 7 years ago, when He Zhichu entered the largest law firm in the United States as a partner, the He family gradually surfaced in South America. Hua Xiaoheng's hand tapped on the file twice and shook his head. This doesn't convince me. Continue investigating. If the He family really had such great power, it's impossible for there to be no news at all. So much wealth and influence couldn't be built in a day and night. So there's something that doesn't make sense. Zhao Yangzi originally thought that he had investigated thoroughly enough, but he didn't expect Hua Xiaoheng to say that there were really loopholes everywhere. He took the file back dejectedly and whispered with his head down, "Yes, Chief." Hua Xiaoheng looked at his dejected expression and reminded him, "There's one more thing. If we look at the timeline, the year the He family surfaced was the year we saved Nianji." "That's right. Is this also related?" Zhao Liangzi became excited when he heard this. "Is the He family really related to Nianji?" Hua Xiaoheng didn't speak and stared at the computer. He opened a secret program, entered the password and clicked on the page for South America. Although it was only a map, it was processed by special software and entered the relevant data. It was simply a map of all the tycoons on the blue planet. This was also the treasure of the Special Operations Forces. In the past, South America was marked with Latin family names. They were all descendants of the upper-class colonial families of Spain and Portugal. The He family name had only risen in recent years, but it already occupied half of South America. Hua Xiaoheng moved his mouse to Central America above South America and continued to move up to the small countries along the Caribbean Sea. Barbados was one of them, and the Gu family that Gu Yanran belonged to was also one of the tycoons there. Of course, it was not as prominent as the He family. I just want to know how a so-called low-profile family from 7 years ago could avoid the eyes and ears of our Special Operations Forces and suddenly become the underground godfather of South America. Hua Xiaoheng thoughtfully used the mouse to add a note on the map. He then pointed at Barbados and said, "Investigate the Gus where Gu Yanran is from, just like investigating the He's." "Roger, Chief." Zhao Liangzi loudly accepted the order and left with the file. When he came out of Hua Xiaoheng's office, he saw Yin Shixiang sitting there with his feet up on his desk. He didn't look like he was sitting properly. Hua Xiaoheng couldn't help but say disdainfully, "Big Xiong, what's wrong with you recently? Could it be that you're in heat and can't find a partner to mate with?" "Bah, you're the one looking for a mate." Yin Shixiang snorted at Zhao Liangzi. "Let's get down to business. I heard what you said to Hua Xiaoheng inside." He pouted at Hua Xiaoheng's office. Zhao Liangzi hugged the file and sat down behind his desk. He shrugged and said, "So what if I heard it? Do we still have secrets between us?" Whatever Zhao Liangzi knew, Yin Shixiang also needed to know. Similarly, whatever Yin Shixiang knew, Zhao Liangzi also needed to know. This was work procedure and also a necessity. In the Special Operations Forces, there was no such thing as only one person knowing everything. This was just in case. It was both a balance and double insurance. In case someone died in the line of duty, the other person could continue working. Of course there are secrets. Yin Shixiang snickered and moved closer to Zhao Liangzi to whisper. "For example, you never told me you liked the older sister but you were pestered by the younger sister. You. Don't talk nonsense." Zhao Liangzi almost jumped out of his chair. He quickly lowered his voice to warn Yin Shixiang, "Don't talk nonsense like this. Otherwise I'll tell your future wife all your bad habits." "What bad habits? What am I afraid of? How can a man not have bad habits?" Yin Shixiang stood up nonchalantly and looked at Hua Xiaoheng's office. He wanted to go in and say something. Zhao Liangzi caught up and grabbed his collar. "It's really okay? Then I'll tell your future wife in the future which playboy girl you like to masturbate to." "Shut up." Yin Shixiang's face instantly turned red. He warned him fiercely, "How did you know? This is my personal privacy. It's not work. You can't talk nonsense." "Ha ha ha." Zhao Liangzi laughed so hard he couldn't stand straight. "You really do. I was just bluffing, ha." Yin Shixiang realized he had fallen into Zhao Liangzi's trap. He kicked him angrily and rushed into Hua Xiaoheng's office without looking back. He slammed the door shut. Hua Xiaoheng looked up from behind his desk and looked at Yin Shixiang calmly. "What's up?" "Hua Xiao, I have an idea but I don't know if I should say it." Yin Shixiang saw that Hua Xiaoheng's expression was normal. It was as if he hadn't heard Zhao Liangzi's gossip outside. Yin Shixiang's face heated up a little. "Then come in after you've thought it through." Hua Xiaoheng looked up at the door and gestured to Yin Shixiang that it was on the other side. Yin Shixiang chuckled but didn't turn to leave. Instead, he walked to Hua Xiaoheng's desk and lowered his voice. "Hua Xiao, we've been investigating this and that, but we haven't found much. Actually, have you ever thought about directly starting with Nianji?" It wasn't that Hua Xiaoheng hadn't considered this problem, but Gu Nianji's memory was a big obstacle. If she could remember things from before she was 12 years old, then they wouldn't have to spend so much effort to investigate. However, whenever she tried to recall the past, her brain would ache violently. The worst case was when her entire body spasmed during hypnosis and she almost fainted. Since that time, Hua Xiaoheng never mentioned hypnosis to awaken memories again. Chen Lai, the instigator of it, didn't dare mention it either. When Gu Nianji went to see a psychiatrist, it was only a routine checkup. Just pretend that Nianji's memory is completely unrecoverable. So don't even think about starting with her. Hua Xiaoheng paused and rejected Yin Shixiang's suggestion. Yin Shixiang quickly said, I know we can't use hypnosis to awaken her memory, but we can use other methods. What other methods? For example, we can gradually tell her some of the information we know and see how she reacts. We don't want to try to awaken her lost memories, but to let her re-receive the information she should be familiar with. In time, maybe it will have a positive effect on her? Yin Shixiang relied on his understanding of the human heart, not the brain. For people, even if they lost their memories, some things were engraved in their bones and would always show up inadvertently. Hua Xiaoheng nodded thoughtfully. That makes sense. Go on. With Hua Xiaoheng's encouragement, Yin Shixiang became even more enthusiastic. Here it's recent. Didn't we find out that He Zhichu might have known Nianji in the past? We can reveal to Nianji that they might have known each other in the past, then ask her if he did anything special when she was with He Zhichu. If he did, it would be more helpful for us to find the truth and help Nianji find her family. Hua Xiaoheng glanced at Yin Shixiang and said calmly, when was Nianji ever with He Zhichu? You have to be careful with your words. Yin Shixiang was speechless. Damn it. He was just expressing his thoughts. How did Hua Xiaoheng take it to such an extent? Yin Shixiang opened his mouth to defend himself, but looked up to see the corners of Hua Xiaoheng's lips gradually twitching. He immediately accepted the criticism. Yes, Chief, I didn't express myself. What I mean is there any difference when she and He Zhichu interact in private? Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. Forget it, this guy might be doing it on purpose. Hua Xiaoheng didn't dwell on Yin Shixiang's choice of words. He thought about it carefully for a few minutes and nodded slowly. We can try. That's great. Yin Shixiang rubbed his palms together. How about I be the first person to try? Speak properly. What do you mean by trying? Hua Xiaoheng glared at him. Nianji needs to rest in bed for the next 2 weeks. I'll go ask her. This was the first watch. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. 7 p.m. the next watch. P.S. Thank you, Beiji's ring, for the gift of Heshabi yesterday. Oh, __. Oh. Chapter 432. Since Hua Xiaoheng said he would ask, Yin Shixiang didn't want to be a busybody. He rubbed his nose and smiled sheepishly. Hua Xiao, please put more effort into this matter. It's for Nianji anyway. She will understand. Hua Xiaoheng glanced at him but didn't say anything. He only turned his gaze back to the computer. This action meant that the conversation was over and Yin Shixiang could leave. Yin Shixiang walked out of Hua Xiaoheng's office and closed the door for him. As soon as the door closed, Hua Xiaoheng's gaze returned to his desk. He stared at a coffee cup on the desk for a while, then reached out to open the drawer and took out a book. The cover of the book was painted with a red rabbit. The title was The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. Opening the book, there was a photo in the book's interlayer. Hua Xiaoheng took out the photo and looked at it carefully. In the photo was a little girl around 11 or 12 years old. She was wearing a pretty little princess dress and had long hair draped over the back of her head. She had dark bangs and a round, chubby face. Her eyes weren't big but they were long and narrow. The corners of her eyes slanted upwards and curved like crescent moons when she smiled. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes all these years, Hua Xiaoheng wouldn't have believed that the little girl's long and narrow eyes in the photo would grow into Gu Nianji's eyes. A chubby and even somewhat unattractive little girl, after passing puberty, her facial features actually blossomed. Then, like a rose, from the shyness of a bud to the charm of a blooming flower, she began to display her delicate and charming demeanor. In short, no one would be able to tell that the little girl in the photo was the current Gu Nianji if they only looked at the photo. Could it be because of this that Gu Nianji's family didn't recognize her when they met face to face? Hua Xiaoheng twirled the photo in his hand and looked at it over and over again. It was as if he wanted to see the wonders of the creator from the photo. The little girl in the photo was how he first met Gu Nianji. On the back of the photo was a sentence, Gu Nianji's 11th birthday. There was a date below it. It was a year ago. They had determined Gu Nianji's name and birthday based on this photo. Hua Xiaoheng stared at it for a long time before putting it back into the book. He locked the drawer and began to work. Every day, news from all over the world was sent to Hua Xiaoheng's desk. Of course, these news had already been filtered. The unimportant ones had already been taken care of by his subordinates. Only the important 5-star news and above would be personally handled by Huo. Once he started working, he would be especially focused. There were no distractions in his mind. Nothing could shake his tenacious mind. When it was almost time for dinner, Yin Shixiang poked his head into Huo Xiaoheng's office a few times. He saw that Huo Xiaoheng was meticulously reading through the confidential documents, so he didn't disturb him. "Little Zhe, I'm going back to the mansion. Are you on duty today?" Yin Shixiang put on his short coat. "I'm so tired today. I want to go back and have a bowl of soup." The chefs in Huo Xiao's kitchen can be head chefs in 3-star Michelin restaurants. How can they not feed you? Zhao Liangzi rolled his eyes at him. "All you know is to eat. Look at how much you've gained." No. Yin Shixiang was anxious. He couldn't bear to hear others call him fat. Actually, he wasn't fat. He was just tall and broad-boned, so he looked stronger than the average man. Although Zhao Liangzi wasn't thin, he was small-boned and tall. When he stood up, he was handsome. Yin Shixiang looked like a bodyguard next to him, so Zhao Liangzi often mocked him. "Forget it. I'm not eating today." Yin Shixiang grumbled as he grabbed his briefcase and left the office building. Returning to Huo Xiaoheng's official residence, Yin Shixiang first went to his suite to shower and change before going downstairs to the dining room to take a look. He suddenly remembered how pitiful it was for Gu Nianji to be alone in her room, so he ordered the orderly, "Send my food and Miss Gu to her room. I'll go eat with her." The orderly acknowledged and brought the food and soup to the living room outside Gu Nianji's suite. He placed them on the small coffee table. "Thank you." Yin Shixiang nodded at the orderly, indicating that he could leave. The orderly smiled. "Lieutenant Colonel Yin, you're too kind. This is what I should do." After he left, he very considerately closed the door for Yin Shixiang. Yin Shixiang looked at the food on the coffee table and called into the bedroom. "Nianji, dinner is ready. Can you eat by yourself?" Gu Nianji had heard Yin Shixiang and the orderly's voices a long time ago, but she didn't dare make a sound when the orderly was there. She only got up from the bed after the orderly left. Wearing her pajamas, she stuck her head out of the door and looked around. She waved at Yin Shixiang. "Brother Xiong, can you bring me the food?" Gu Nianji's mouth automatically watered when she smelled the food. She was truly hungry. Yin Shixiang nodded with a smile. He placed the food on the tray and brought it to Gu Nianji's bedroom. There was a small long table against the wall in her bedroom. It was originally used to hold jade screens, landscapes, and antiques. She moved the small jade screen and a double-sided embroidered screen of a cat playing with a butterfly into the house of bountiful treasures. Yin Shixiang placed the food on the long table, and the two of them sat on one side and began eating. Gu Nianji first drank a bowl of soup, then ate 2 gold and silver steamed buns. She also ate some shredded beef with green peppers and seafood platter before putting down her chopsticks and smiling contentedly. I'm so hungry I could eat a cow." Luckily there was shredded beef today, otherwise I would have been starving. Tiske, you only had a few bites of that cat food, and you're already bragging about it in front of me. Yin Shixiang shook his head and chomped down on the food. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the amount of food he ate for one meal was enough for Gu Nianji to eat for 2 days. Of course, Gu Nianji was already used to the way they ate, so she didn't think it was strange. She sat to the side and slowly drank a cup of tea, occasionally straightening her back. Lying in bed for too long was also very tiring. After Yin Shixiang finished eating, he also made a cup of tea and began chatting with Gu Nianji about everything under the sun. After chatting for a while, Yin Shixiang naturally asked about Hijichu. "Nianji, your professor, he treats you really well, and don't you think he seems to be very familiar with you?" Yin Shixiang looked down to take a sip of tea and didn't look at Gu Nianji's expression. Gu Nianji was slightly taken aback. "Brother Xiong, you think so?" "Yes, it's quite a coincidence." Yin Shixiang unknowingly mentioned Hijichu's situation. "Look, when you were in university, Hijichu became an associate professor at Harvard Law School and was promoted to a tenured professor in 2 years." "Is that so?" Professor He was originally a top student at Yale Law School, and was already a partner at the largest law firm in the United States. Gu Nianji tilted her head as if she didn't believe Yin Shixiang's reason. "Yes, that's right. He has the ability. Since he's so good, wouldn't it be better for him to stay in the United States as a professor at Harvard Law School? But look, last year he accepted an invitation from B University's Faculty of Law to come here as a doctoral advisor, and the year you graduated, he suddenly decided to recruit a master's student." Yin Shixiang finished speaking and looked at Gu Nianji motionlessly. Do you think it's still a coincidence? Gu Nianji looked down and shook her head. I don't know. I think it's a coincidence, but since Brother Xiong said it like that, you definitely don't think it's a coincidence. If it wasn't a coincidence, then it had to be intentional. If this had happened in the past, Gu Nianji would have vigorously refuted him. She didn't think that she was able to get all these opportunities because He Jichu had opened the back door for her. She wanted to get all of this with her own abilities. But after the recent events and He Jichu's foresight of her ankle injury, she couldn't use coincidence to convince herself anymore. But she couldn't explain these thoughts to Yin Shixiang in detail right now. They were all just her own guesses. It's good that you know it's not a coincidence. Yin Shixiang stood up and winked at her with a smile. Anyway, I'm just reminding you. Wuxiao will ask you when he has the chance. He strode out of the living room and cleaned up the dishes, leaving a confused Gu Nianji in a daze in the bedroom. Hua Xiaoheng finished all his work and left the office building to return to his official residence. It was already 11 p.m. He habitually went to Gu Nianji's room to take a look. The room was dark, and when Hua Xiaoheng pushed the door open, he walked straight from the living room to the bedroom. When he arrived at the bedroom, he found no one on the bed. He froze for a moment, then quickly heard Gu Nianji's voice coming from the other side of the bedroom. Wuxiao, is that you? Hua Xiaoheng turned around. His eyes were now used to the darkness, and he saw Gu Nianji standing up from the long table by the wall. So she wasn't sleeping on the bed, but was sitting alone in the dark bedroom. It was the second watch. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Oh, intersection. Oh, moi. Chapter 433. Why aren't you asleep yet? Hua Xiaoheng remembered it was already past 11:30 when he came in. You still need to rest. Although Qinlai said you're fine, who knows? Hua Xiaoheng walked over and naturally held Gu Nianji's hand as he led her back to the bed. Gu Nianji looked up at Hua Xiaoheng. Her eyes were focused and calm, and they sparkled in the darkness like dazzling obsidian of the highest quality. However, perhaps because it was dark, her eyes weren't as pure and clear as they were during the day. Instead, they were dark and bottomless. Hua Xiaoheng couldn't help holding her waist and bending down to kiss her eyelids. Gu Nianji's body couldn't withstand Hua Xiaoheng's strength. She was as supple as a willow tree and bent back slightly. Hua Xiaoheng's kisses slid down from her eyelids, past her delicate nose, and to her plump, red lips. He sucked on her lips like she was a delicious candy and couldn't stop loving her. Gu Nianji gently nestled in his arms. Only his hot chest was the safest place for her. The unknown was faintly discernible and gradually revealed the outline of a large body in front of her. She didn't know what she would face if she peeled away the thick fog. But she knew one thing. Whether it was good or bad, her life would definitely be different from now. She could no longer hide under Hua Xiaoheng's wings and ignore the storms of the outside world. Perhaps it was because Hua Xiaoheng gave her such a strong sense of security and love that she never thought about what it would be like if she had parents. But now, she had no choice but to force herself to find everything she'd lost. Memories, family, and a clear identity. Because if she didn't find them, she couldn't be with Hua Xiaoheng forever. And she couldn't lose Hua Xiaoheng. She didn't want to lose him. Hua Xiaoheng kissed her as he carried her to the bed and covered her with the blanket. Leaning against the bed, he turned on the bedside lamp. Under the warm yellow light, Gu Nianji's small face revealed a slightly yellowish ivory whiteness. Hua Xiaoheng touched her face and asked, Nianji, how does He Jichu normally treat you? Big Xiong and Little Zay said he treats you very differently from other people. What do you think? Gu Nianji's heart skipped a beat. Here it comes. Luckily Brother Xiong had reminded her. Otherwise she really wouldn't know how to answer. In the few hours after Yin Shixiang left, Gu Nianji had already mentally prepared herself. She subconsciously felt that there were some things that she couldn't say because she couldn't explain it clearly. She was also afraid that Hua Xiaoheng would be unhappy. Professor, he treats me quite well. Brother Xiong and Brother Zay should have already told you about what happened in America. Gu Nianji blinked, her eyes sparkling under the light. Hua Xiaoheng looked down at her and reached out for her, but he retracted his hand halfway and adjusted the blanket for her instead. Yes, Professor, he does treat me differently. Sometimes he seems to care about me, but sometimes he treats me strangely. For example, when I was in America, I didn't know how I annoyed him, but he chased me out without saying anything. I even injured my leg at the time, but he didn't care. At this point, Gu Nianji's heart skipped a beat. Yes, she also injured her leg in America last time. Although it wasn't as serious as this time, He Jichu didn't seem to care. He directly chased her out and didn't even ask for a car to take her home. She was upset and angry. She cursed He Jichu countless times in her heart. Later, she met Mei Xiaowen, who had flown over from the Wuxia Empire to look for her. She was finally touched by his pursuit, and this time she said she might be paralyzed. He Jichu's tone was extremely disdainful. It was like he had heard the biggest joke in the world. Why was he so sure that she would be fine? Even Chen Lai couldn't guarantee it. Wu Xiaoheng was even more nervous. He practically tied her to the seat in the car so she couldn't move. But it would be a lie to say that He Jichu didn't care about her at all. He Jichu was always furious when he found out that someone had hurt her. She still remembered the time in America when the American campus police officer's greasy hand was about to reach out to her face when He Jichu walked in with a gun. Seeing him like that, Gu Nianji didn't doubt that He Jichu would kill someone. If someone dared to touch her, he would kill them. At the time she didn't think too much about it. She only felt that He Jichu had saved her when she was in danger and was extremely touched. If it weren't for He Jichu's mood swings and her sensing of his unusual feelings for her, she wouldn't have felt so distant from him. But thinking about all these things together, was He Jichu's feelings for her really as simple as romantic love? Ordinary romantic love or even love at first sight, would he go that far for her? To this extent of caring? Sometimes it was really on par with Wu Xiaoheng. He didn't really care about it last time. Why is he reacting so strongly this time? Wu Xiaoheng mused. Have you thought about the reason behind this? Gu Nianji hesitated for a long time but still didn't tell him about He Jichu's old ligament injury. She wanted to confirm it with He Jichu first before telling Wu Xiaoheng. Because when it came to Wu Xiaoheng, it was no longer a small matter but a huge matter. Gu Nianji turned over on the bed and lay on her side next to Wu Xiaoheng's leg. She simply rested her head on his hard thigh and muttered quietly, "How would I know? He's always been a moody person. Once in his office I said something wrong and his gaze almost killed me." Wu Xiaoheng was silent for a long time. He patted Gu Nianji's head. "If that's the case, why don't you stop being his graduate student and transfer to another professor?" "No." Gu Nianji instinctively objected. She looked up and saw Wu Xiaoheng's silent gaze. Her heart skipped a beat. She knew she had fallen into Wu Xiaoheng's trap. Wu Xiaoheng quietly withdrew his hand and put on a businesslike expression. He said calmly, "Is there something else you haven't told me?" Gu Nianji closed her eyes. She knew she couldn't hide it anymore. After struggling for a while, she stammered. "Once he lost his temper at me and almost strangled me. He said he couldn't find me. It wasn't his fault. He'd been looking for me for so many years." Wu Xiaoheng sat up almost immediately and pulled Gu Nianji out of the blankets. His expression changed. "What did you say? He really said that to you? When did this happen?" Gu Nianji was frightened by Wu Xiaoheng's gaze. She quickly said, "It wasn't that long ago. It was when the semester started." "Why didn't you tell me?" Wu Xiaoheng's voice became lower and lower. His eyes were dark and his expression was dark. It was like the sky was about to storm. It was full of oppressive pressure. Gu Nianji pursed her lips and glanced at Wu Xiaoheng. She looked down and twisted her fingers. "I didn't think much of it. I thought he took the wrong medicine and went crazy." Wu Xiaoheng didn't know what to say. He Jichu had already exposed so many flaws, but this little girl pretended she didn't exist. She didn't even tell him. If Yin Shixiang hadn't suggested starting with Gu Nianji, Wu Xiaoheng didn't know how much more important information Gu Nianji would have hidden. "From now on, whatever He Jichu says or does to you, you have to write it down and send it to me every day. Do you understand?" Wu Xiaoheng gave her an order. He treated her like she was his soldier and he never disobeyed. Gu Nianji blinked. She was a bit reluctant. "But I'm his student. Do I have to write down the contents of his classes?" "Don't interrupt me. You know what I'm talking about." Wu Xiaoheng stood up from the bed. His eyes were stern. "Don't let me know you're hiding this information again." He looked at Gu Nianji. "Go to bed early. I'm leaving now." Wu Xiaoheng strode out. He didn't return to his suite across the street. Instead he went straight to the office building. Zhao Yangze, who was on duty, saw him and asked in surprise, "Hu Xiao, why are you back? What's the matter?" Wu Xiaoheng walked past his desk without looking back. "Come to my office." Zhao Yangze quickly followed him in. He closed the office door and went to Wu Xiaoheng. "Wu Xiao, what are your orders?" "Monitor He Jichu. From now on, don't miss a single second." Wu Xiaoheng sat behind his desk. His expression had already returned to normal. Zhao Yangze couldn't see anything wrong with his expression. He could only accept the order. "Yes, Chief." He returned to his seat and opened the surveillance program. He began to search for information about He Jichu's phone, as well as his landline number and IP address. He then installed the Trojan Horse program he used. That way he would be able to control all information about He Jichu's external contacts. He knew his program well. It was highly confidential. Even monitoring the phone of an important CIA person would be a piece of cake. It wouldn't leave a single trace. Late at night, He Jichu didn't sleep. He sat alone on the single-seater sofa in his bedroom. He held a glass of red wine and was about to drink. The bedroom lights were off. His face was hidden in the darkness. It was impossible to tell what he was thinking. In the silence of the night, the phone suddenly made a soft ding sound. He Jichu lazily took the phone and glanced at it. It was a notification that a Trojan horse had invaded his phone. He sneered. They're actually monitoring me. What a joke. This was the first watch. He was begging for monthly votes and recommendation votes. It was 7 o'clock in the evening. Chapter 434. The doors and windows of the bedroom were tightly shut, and the black gold velvet curtains of the French windows were not put down. Only the inner layer of gauze curtains hung to the ground, faintly revealing the bright sunlight outside the window. He Jichu looked down at his phone as he downed his glass of red wine. Putting down the wine glass, he began to input various commands into his phone. He would not delete the invading Trojan Horse program. He would only modify it and let it send what he wanted the program to send. Of course it would all be fake. Who said that we must let the eavesdroppers hear the evidence? You have the guts to eavesdrop, but don't you have the brains to tell if it's real or fake? He Jichu had a mocking expression on his face as he quickly finished modifying the Trojan Horse. He endured and endured, not following the source of the Trojan Horse to see what the terminal looked like. He didn't have any suitable equipment here, so he couldn't guarantee that the other party wouldn't notice if he hacked into the other party's terminal. Therefore it was better to pretend that he didn't know anything. After modifying the Trojan Horse, He Jichu immediately saved a set of data and set it to be sent at a fixed time. This way the other party would be able to receive his daily updates every once in a while. Of course they were all fake. His mood was originally very gloomy, but with this thing that delivered itself to his doorstep, he gradually felt better. After checking the modified program from beginning to end and confirming that there were no problems, he put away his phone and went to the bathroom to wash up. When he was brushing his teeth, he looked at himself in the mirror with a hopeless expression. Was it because she was not by his side, or because her heart and body no longer belonged to him? He couldn't tell which was more hurtful. However, from the looks of the Trojan Horse sent by the other party, they should have noticed it as well. He Jichu pursed his lips and wiped his hands with a white towel. He thought it was time. What would he do if Gunyenji never remembered what had happened in the past? He had no choice but to take the initiative to step forward. Huoxiao, Professor, his daily life is very normal. Zhao Liangzi had been reporting He Jichu's information to Huoxiao every day for the past few days. He's currently at Harvard University in Boston. He might have some matters to attend to at the law school. His teaching assistant, Wen Shui, is no longer at Harvard. Huoxiao tapped his fingers on the table and asked, "Where did she go? Did you find anything?" "Our people are trying to find it in South America." Zhao Liangzi hesitated for a moment. "But the situation over there is too complicated. The government is basically a puppet and doesn't interfere. It's the local tycoons and mafias who actually control the cities and villages." In those South American countries, the authority and credibility of government officials could not be compared to the local tycoons or local forces. It might be too much to call it the underworld because there was no distinction between right and wrong there. Since there was no such thing as a righteous path, what right did you have to say that the underworld was a righteous path? "Yes, continue the investigation. We can't give up," Huoxiao said calmly. "Even if you have to dig 3 feet deep in South America, you have to find her." General Ji relayed Huoxiao's words to the standing committee members of the Army Supreme Council, and they held a special discussion. After exchanging opinions, they felt that his suggestion was feasible. Therefore, everyone quickly voted to give full authority over the personnel of the Special Operations Forces to the Chief of the Special Operations Forces. Huoxiao was now the chief, so he had full authority over the personnel. When the day came that he was no longer the head of the Special Operations Forces, this power would naturally disappear. The Supreme Military Council had the power to appoint the commander of the Special Operations Forces. That way they wouldn't have to worry about the Special Operations Forces becoming an independent organization that wasn't subject to management. The appointment of Hua Xiaoheng as the Deputy Secretary General of the Standing Committee of the Army Supreme Council took effect very quickly. However, the Supreme Military Council chose to remain silent about the fact that he was also the commander of the Special Operations Forces at the same time. They didn't admit it, nor did they deny it. The outside world could guess however they wanted. After all, this organization couldn't see the light of day. However, Hua Xiaoheng now had a public identity and could face society openly. However, he still chose to keep a low profile. He didn't appear on television, didn't appear in newspapers or magazines, and didn't expose himself online. As for his appointment, it only took up a small space in the Army's Internal Affairs Department. Deputy Chief of Staff Su was placed under house arrest and was extremely depressed. When he had nothing to do, he loved to read the newspaper, especially the Internal Affairs Department. He read it from beginning to end without missing a word. Sometimes he even read it twice. One day he saw the news of Hua Xiaoheng's promotion, but he couldn't find anything about Hua Xiaoheng's relationship with the Special Operations Forces. Deputy Chief of Staff Su thought for a while and his face turned pale. This Hua Xiaoheng was really influential. Mrs. Su was locked up at home and worried about her daughter, Su Piaohong, all day long. "Old Su, do you think we can go and see our daughter? I don't know how she's been living in the detention center. She's been pampered since she was young. Now that she's been treated so badly, I'm worried that she'll take things too hard." Mrs. Su sobbed and asked Deputy Chief of Staff Su to think of a way to visit Su Piaohong in the detention center. Deputy Chief of Staff Su was also worried about his daughter. That day, a group of soldiers from the security company came to their house with an arrest warrant signed by General Ji and took his daughter away. He and his wife wanted to chase after them, but they were blocked at home. They said that before Su Piaohong's case was solved, they couldn't go anywhere and could only stay at home. At that time, Deputy Chief of Staff Su was furious and yelled at the guards. He said that he was the Deputy Chief of Staff and had a lot of work to do. If military affairs were delayed, shouldn't they be responsible? Not long after, the news of him being demobilized reached their ears. Deputy Chief of Staff Su and Mrs. Su completely gave up and didn't dare to cause any more trouble. Since he had decided to be demobilized, Deputy Chief of Staff Su didn't care about the repercussions anymore. He requested to see his daughter, and if they didn't allow him to see her, he would take it to the military court. House arrest had a time limit. After a certain time limit, he would have to be dealt with by the military court. When the higher-ups received his request, they discussed it for a while and agreed to it. When Su Piaohong saw her parents in the detention center, it was already a week after she was arrested. "Dad, Mom, please save me. I don't want to go to jail." Su Piaohong cried and looked much more haggard. There weren't any expensive skincare products or cosmetics in the detention center. Her skin was dry on the inside and oily on the outside. Mrs. Su looked at her daughter with heartache and sobbed, "Piaohong, don't be afraid. Mom will find you the best lawyer. They won't be able to convict you." Although Deputy Chief of Staff Su felt bad for his daughter, he knew that Su Piaohong's crime was conclusive and had a negative impact. The consequences were still brewing and no one knew what kind of serious consequences it would cause. Under such circumstances, it was better to start the trial early. "Piaohong, wait a little longer. The trial should be starting soon." Deputy Chief of Staff Su comforted her. "When you get out of jail after 2 years? I'm really going to jail? I don't want to. How am I going to face people after I get out?" Su Piaohong cried her heart out and said that if her parents didn't save her, she wouldn't want to live anymore. They made a huge ruckus in the visitation room of the detention center. It was extremely noisy. Mrs. Su cried her heart out as well. Deputy Chief of Staff Su couldn't control her and could only stand aside and let the mother and daughter vent. However, the prison guards couldn't take it anymore. A female prison guard walked in and warned Su Piaohong, "Number 26. Please calm down. If you continue, you'll be breaking the rules and will be punished." "I don't care. What *T punishment? I'm going to jail, why would I care about punishment?" Su Piaohong couldn't take it anymore after holding it in for a week. She turned around and waved her arms as she walked towards the female prison guard. The female prison guard quickly took out the electric baton from her waist and blocked it in front of her. She shouted, "Assault on a police officer. Number 26, you better think this through." By the time Su Piaohong understood what was going on, the electric baton had already hit her waving arm. A sharp pain spread through her entire arm. Su Piaohong couldn't stop herself in time and lost her balance. She fell to the ground and couldn't get up for a long time. Mrs. Su saw this and wanted to rush over, but the female prison guard quickly warned her, "Don't come over. You'll be punished if you come over." Deputy Chief of Staff Su quickly grabbed his wife and brought her out of the visiting room. When the couple got home, they immediately started looking for a lawyer for Su Piaohong. After the law firms in the imperial capital found out about the case, they all said that it wasn't a good idea to take on the case. In the end, it was still JD law firm that took on the case. The rookie lawyer, Jin Wani, became Su Piaohong's lawyer. The case was scheduled to start in a month's time. Therefore, Jin Wani began to run to the Special Operations Forces headquarters to try and see Yin Shixiang. Gu Nianji didn't know that Huashaoheng's Special Operations Forces had already listed He Jichu as a key target for observation. She also didn't know that Huashaoheng had already started monitoring He Jichu's phone. However, she knew that her phone was completely open to Huashaoheng. The calls that entered her phone had to be screened before being let in. Not everyone could directly contact her and talk to her through her phone. She focused on recovering in her bedroom for 2 whole weeks. She felt like she was going to grow moldy. Fortunately, Chen Lai sent her a letter of termination, the moment the 2 weeks were over. He said that she had completely recovered and could go back to school. Gu Nianji said to Chen Lai gratefully, "Brother Chen, thank you so much. I was really afraid that I would be locked up for another 2 weeks. Remember, don't let anything slip." Chen Lai reminded her softly, "Su Piaohong's case will be in court in 2 weeks. Her lawyer is looking for evidence everywhere. She's pretty serious. Don't fall for her tricks." Gu Nianji smiled and nodded. "I know. I'm also a law student. That lawyer will have to put in a lot of effort to find fault with me." On Sunday evening, Gu Nianji packed her things and prepared to return to school. However, Huashaoheng didn't really see her for the past 2 weeks. First, he went on a business trip for a week. When he came back, he mainly went to the Supreme Military Council to hand over his work to the former Deputy Secretary General. He was extremely busy. Gu Nianji could only send him a text every night before she went to bed. Huashaoheng would sometimes reply, and sometimes he wouldn't when he was too busy. Gu Nianji stared at her phone all day long. She would be happy for the whole day as long as Huashaoheng sent her a message. If Huashaoheng didn't reply at all that day, she would be depressed for the whole day. Gu Nianji also felt like she was being possessed, placing all of her emotions on one person. She wanted to quickly leave and return to the school environment. Maybe then she wouldn't be so clingy. She obviously felt that Huashaoheng didn't like his girlfriend being too clingy. She carried her backpack and a small suitcase out of the official residence. Gu Nianji waited for Yin Shixiang to send her back to school. However, he didn't show up even after a long time. Finally, she had no choice but to call Yin Shixiang. It took a long time for the call to go through. Yin Shixiang said hurriedly, "Nianji? I'm at the gate. Can you come over yourself?" Gu Nianji heard the sound of an argument on the other end. She hesitated for a moment. "Brother Xiong, are you okay over there?" "I'm fine. Someone keeps trying to come in. I'm stopping her." Yin Shixiang said to Jin Wani, who was pestering him to go in. "Lawyer Jin, I'm very busy. I have to send someone out right away. I'm leaving. Other people don't have a good temper like me. Don't blame me if you get arrested." This was the 3,500-word second chapter. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Oh, __. Oh. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.